Chapter 27-22. At the same time, a powerful sovereign aura appeared around Mu Tianlai. He immediately used this powerful energy and used the dark ice spear in his hand to fight against the sky cloud arrows that were flying in the air. With Luo Tian's help, he didn't look like he was going to lose, even though it was still very tiring. So it was you who did this. Feeling the change in Mu Tianlai, Night Sorrow immediately looked in Luo Tian's direction. He realized that Luo Tian was secretly transferring sovereign-level energy to Ling Yun's body. He immediately scolded, "Luo Tian, do you have any shame? As a sovereign, can't you have some magnanimity? Can't you afford to lose? And if you slander me again, then I'll kill you right away." Luo Tian couldn't hold back his anger after being scolded by Night Sorrow. As the saying goes, when a sovereign is angry, blood will flow for thousands of miles. Luo Tian's anger silenced the entire gambling arena. The spectators who were originally shouting were so scared that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. At this time Long Wuxiu, who was as calm as Mount Tai, smiled. "Night Sorrow, don't bother about this. In the end, you have to rely on your own ability to fight. I have high hopes for you." His meaning was very clear. He wouldn't pursue the matter of Luo Tian cheating. After all, the other party was a sovereign. If he was shameless, it would be difficult to deal with him. At the same time, he hinted that Luo Tian wouldn't cheat again, because he had already started to pay attention to this matter. "Yes, Senior Long." Night Sorrow, who replied to Long Wuxiu, felt that he had used up a lot of energy and swallowed a few recovery pills. After recovering, Night Sorrow immediately used the evolved Treastrimsa battle secret technique and raised his strength to the peak again. At this time Mu Tianlai was fighting against a few golden crows in the sky. After these sky cloud arrows transformed into golden crows, although they didn't have self-awareness, under Night Sorrow's control, they continuously attacked the other party. Night Sorrow, who had raised his strength to the peak, held the heavenly Samsara halberd in his hand and used the dragon steps to charge towards Mu Tianlai. He planned to use the 7 heaven cloud arrows to feign an attack and rely on close combat to severely injure Mu Tianlai. When Night Sorrow had first arrived, Mu Tianlai, who was resisting the 7 sky cloud arrows, had thought of dodging. However, he was quickly blocked by the Divine Essence dragon locking array. Not only did he have to face 7 heaven cloud arrows, but he was also caught up by Night Sorrow. After closing the distance, Night Sorrow did not use any gunshots. Instead, he used his exquisite marksmanship to continuously launch light attacks. Damn it! How could a mere divine lord be so powerful? Even with the help of a sovereign-grade divine artifact, it shouldn't be this bad. Mu Tianlai, who had been continuously suppressed, looked at Luo Tian timidly. At this moment, Luo Tian's face was completely ashen. Clearly, he was extremely disappointed. "Looks like I can only use the forbidden move." As a divine king, Mu Tianlai couldn't help but feel a strong sense of anger when he was suppressed by Night Sorrow. "It's already like this. What are you still hesitating for?" Seeing Mu Tianlai's expression, Luo Tian coldly transmitted his voice. "Yes, sovereign. Even if I have to sacrifice myself, I will still succeed in victory." After saying this, Mu Tianlai, who had been suppressed all this while, roared crazily. After he roared, an extremely evil shadow descended from the void and attached itself to his body. In an instant, Mu Tianlai's aura became more than 5 times stronger. When faced with the heaven cloud arrows and Samsara halberd, he no longer chose to dodge. Instead, he crazily took them head-on. Evil spirit possession? Night Sorrow knew that Mu Tianlai knew some divination techniques. However, he didn't expect him to use such a move. What kind of technique is this? Seeing Mu Tianlai attract the evil spirit into his body, Long Tianqing, who was watching from the outside, immediately asked Long Wuxiu. "This is a forbidden technique. Using a secret technique to summon a powerful evil spirit from another world to attach itself to his body. If nothing goes wrong, it won't last for long. Furthermore, after it ends, his body will be completely crippled." A rare look of seriousness appeared between Long Wuxiu's brows. He was afraid that Night Sorrow wouldn't be able to take it under the other party's technique. Night Sorrow's wife and Wu Lingfei's eyes were also filled with worry. This was especially so for Wu Lingfei. When she realized that Night Sorrow was fighting against the Divine King, she was extremely shocked. At the same time, she was also secretly worried for Mu Tianlai. When Mu Tianlai summoned the evil spirit into his body, she was so nervous that she bit her lips. The ant of the Sir God realm. After the evil spirit entered his body, Mu Tianlai obviously became more powerful. At the same time, his rationality gradually disappeared and his attacks became crazier. The dark ice spear in his hand was also swung around like a rod. Seeing that Mu Tianlai had become so crazy, Luo Tian, who originally had a solemn expression, smiled again. Very strong. However, against you, I won't back down. Night Sorrow, who was still fighting with Mu Tianlai in close combat, didn't back down at all. Furthermore, the fighting spirit in his body was raised to another level. If you don't back down, then die. Mu Tianlia's body, which was no longer under Mu Tianlia's control, shouted sinisterly. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of ice-cold black flames. The distance was too close. Although Night Sorrow chose to dodge at the first moment, he was still infected. After the black flames burned Night Sorrow's body, they immediately turned into countless small black snakes and crazily drilled into his body. Is it another spiritual attack? This attack reminded Night Sorrow of the move that Mu Tianlai had used to seal his spirit ocean. However, very quickly Night Sorrow smiled. Although Mu Tianlai had become more powerful after being possessed by the evil spirit, the moves that he used were also more terrifying than Luo Tian's back then. However, the small snakes that were formed by the black aura obviously had a dense evil aura. This is really the will of the heavens. Purify with the power of virtue. Night Sorrow, who had originally thought that it was a little tricky, suddenly laughed. He was least afraid of all kinds of evil creatures and dark means. As the power of virtue in his body turned into a dragon of virtue, not only were the black snakes formed by the black flames purified, but even the black flames that Mu Tianlai had spat out were completely purified. How can there be such a strong power of virtue? Realizing that Night Sorrow actually had such a strong power of virtue, the evil that had descended upon Mu Tianlia's body was instantly enraged. In terms of raw strength, he definitely had the upper hand. However, Night Sorrow's power of virtue was clearly the nemesis of evil creatures like him. I have obtained the body of a divine king like you, but I have to be burned by the power of virtue. Even my luck will be implicated. This matter ends here. The evil spirit that Mu Tianlai had summoned was obviously not a good person. If he continued to fight, he would definitely bring great trouble to Night Sorrow. However, after realizing that Night Sorrow had the power of virtue protecting him, he immediately fled back to the boundary where he was. He actually fled. The moment the evil left, Mu Tianlia's body collapsed on the ground of the gambling arena. Night Sorrow, who had been observing him with the sea serpent's eye, confirmed that the evil spirit in his body had left. Although he was a little surprised, he still used the Samsara halberd to attack, and was ready to end the battle. Chapter 27-23. Ruler of all heaven, we have already agreed that this battle will determine victory and defeat, as well as life and death. Now that the outcome has been decided, you are not thinking of interfering, right? Long Wuxiu, who had been paying attention to Luo Tian's movements, immediately stood up and looked at him. Luo Tian, who was originally thinking of playing tricks, was stared at by Long Wuxiu. His face instantly turned black like the bottom of a pot. It was obvious that he was thinking of ways to continue acting shamelessly, but he was stopped. I naturally disdain interfering in the battle of cultivators of a lower realm. Luo Tian forcefully suppressed his anger, and squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. Then he set up a barrier and isolated all the ordinary spectators in the gambling arena. He looked at Night Sorrow and said, "You have already won. Stop. Before the battle started, we have already agreed that victory and defeat, as well as life and death. Now that the Divine King has lost, what awaits him is only death." Night Sorrow did not have a good impression of the ruler of all heaven, so he killed Mu Tianlai without any hesitation. Night Sorrow was very interested in Mu Tianlia's cloning secret technique, but he knew that with Luo Tian around he would not be able to obtain it, so he killed Mu Tianlai directly. Seeing Night Sorrow kill Mu Tianlai in front of him, Luo Tian snorted coldly. He no longer cared about Night Sorrow and looked at Long Wushu. He threw out a storage bag and said, "If the quantity is not enough, I will compensate you as soon as possible. I hope you will keep your word." Long Wushu, who received the storage bag, smiled. He did not pursue the matter of Luo Tian owing him a debt. He checked the storage bag and took out 6 ruler stones. He gave 3 to Long Tianqing and 3 to Night Sorrow. He looked at Night Sorrow and said with a smile, "Not bad. The younger generation will surpass us in time. I can foresee that your future is limitless." "Thank you for your praise, Senior Long, but there is no need for the ruler stones. After all, you won them from a bet." Yi Shang looked at Long Wushu and felt that there was an extraordinary aura coming from him. "Haha, don't be in a hurry to reject these 3 sovereign stones. If I'm not mistaken, your sovereign artifact has already been severely damaged, especially those few arrows. If they are not maintained, I'm afraid they will be damaged directly." Long Wushu didn't stretch his hand out to take the sovereign stone from Night Sorrow. After he explained, his expression turned solemn. "The sovereign of the all-heaven realms will definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Now you killed someone in his territory. We also benefited from him. It won't be easy for you to leave all heaven's territory. There is indeed a hidden danger in this area. However, this is something that Night Sorrow must do." Night Sorrow said in a deep voice, then continued, "I have to thank Senior Long for coming. Night Sorrow doesn't have anything to repay you for now, but I will remember your favor." "Haha, just remember this favor. Just remember me. It has nothing to do with the Dragon Clan." Long Wushu laughed out loudly and said, "Since you have already killed your enemy and successfully took your revenge, I won't disturb you two from catching up with your loved ones. Before leaving All Heaven's territory, I will rest in Tianqing's spatial artifact." "Yes, Senior Long, Night Sorrow will remember this." Night Sorrow replied politely and thanked Long Tianqing. Then he looked at Wu Lingfei and the others. He said, "Aunt Fei, although we haven't seen each other for a long time, I have a lot of good things to tell you. However, this is not the place to catch up. You can enter my spatial artifact with everyone else. Senior Long and I will bring you all out." "All right. It's the same for me to catch up with everyone in my spatial artifact." Wu Lingfei replied with a smile. Seeing that Night Sorrow had become so strong, she was very gratified in her heart. "Yes. It's the same with us accompanying Aunt Fei." At this time, Xikong Chiyu said. He held Wu Lingfei's arm and said, "Aunt Fei, let me introduce you to Jing Yun, who has just joined our big family." "All right. You all can catch up. Help me take care of Aunt Fei," Night Sorrow said. Then he looked at Jin Ye and said, "Brother Jin Ye, you should go in too. All Heaven doesn't dare to make a move because of Senior Tianqing and me, as well as Sovereign Tianai and the dragons, but you are in danger." "I'll go in too." Jin Ye also understood the seriousness of the matter. If All Heaven attacked him, he would die without a doubt. He immediately entered the Clear Sky Pagoda. "Senior Tianqing, where should we go?" Night Sorrow wasn't very familiar with All Heaven's territory, so he looked at Long Tianqing and asked. Long Tianqing looked at Night Sorrow and asked, "Where are you planning to go now?" The original plan was to go to Sovereign Tianya's territory. However, we have already promised the 13 Yunling Eagles to rescue them. Let's go to them first. After Yi Shang finished speaking, he asked, "Senior Tianqing, what do you think? Just follow your heart and go forth. If All Heaven wants to make a move on us, we can't escape no matter what route we choose. So since we are already here, let's take things as they come." Long Tianqing took the lead and flew out of the gambling arena. Night Sorrow followed closely behind. When he left the gambling arena, he released his divine sense to be on guard. After probing for a while and confirming that no one was following him, he withdrew his divine sense and studied his sealed deity ocean. He discovered that the second deity ocean that Mu Tianlai had sealed had automatically recovered. Night Sorrow still felt that the method Mu Tianlai had used was somewhat mysterious. Thus on the way to Yunling he asked, "Senior Tianqing, have you heard of a method to seal someone's deity ocean? Just now, when I was fighting with Mu Tianlai, he sealed my divine sense C." "I've heard of it, but I've never seen it before. Mu Tianlai is the first one I've seen." Long Tianqing replied. Mu Tianlia's method was indeed somewhat mysterious. I got it. Knight Sorrow replied, feeling that it was a pity. If all heaven hadn't been present, he would have been able to force out such a method. Since we're in a hurry, why don't I control the flying divine artifact while you go and chat with your family? Long Tianqing said understandingly as they continued on their way. Then I'll have to trouble Senior Tianqing. Yishan smiled politely. He really did want to thank Wu Ling concubine. If Wu Lingfei hadn't helped him block Ling Yan's attack, he might have died the moment he arrived in the divine world. When Knight Sorrow entered the clear sky pagoda, his parents and wives were chatting with Wu Lingfei. Among them, Jingyan had clearly become familiar with Wu Lingfei and was telling her about Knight Sorrow's experiences. Knight Sorrow smiled when he saw how happy everyone was. Then he bowed to Wu Lingfei and said, Auntie Fei, Knight Sorrow is late. I've made you suffer a lot. Actually, I didn't suffer much when I was captured by Ling Yan. At first, they wanted me to give it to that Purple Mansion Divine Lord as a birthday gift. However, for some reason, Ling Yan's temperament changed, and he decided to help me cultivate to Divine Lord. Chapter 27-24. Ling Yan changed so much because he was refined into an avatar. The real mastermind behind this is Mu Tianlai. Knight Sorrow told them about his encounter in the battle. Everyone was surprised to hear that Ling Yan was the one who was plotted against by Mu Tianlai. There's actually such a thing? No wonder he changed so much. Wu Lingfei was relieved when she recalled her experience. She then asked, Knight Sorrow, I heard that you're preparing to set up your own sect in the God realm? Yes. I've let everyone down. I'm going to set up an immortal divine territory to protect everyone. Knight Sorrow nodded. His biggest goal was to set up an immortal divine territory. It's good to have ideas, but there are too many strong people in the God realm. You have to be careful. My strength has fallen too far behind. Wu Lingfei said regretfully. She felt that she had missed out on some important years. Haha, Aunt Fei, you're not weak either. There's no time to cultivate in the God realm. As long as we establish ourselves in the immortal divine territory, everyone will have enough time to cultivate. Knight Sorrow comforted her. Sikong Chiyu also smiled and said, That's right. Aunt Fei, it's not too late for you to work hard. Yes. Aunt Fei, you have the Ice Phoenix bloodline. I'll bring you to the Ancestral Phoenix's lair after we're done with this. There's a very important opportunity waiting for you there. Of course, it's the same for Jingyan. Knight Sorrow said to Wu Lingfei. Her and Jingyan's bloodline was closely related to the Phoenix. They had to take the opportunity left behind by the Ancestral Phoenix. The Ancestral Phoenix's lair? You really found it? Wu Lingfei was slightly stunned when she heard Knight Sorrow's words. In reality, she had come to the God realm with everyone because she was reluctant to part with Yishang and the others. As for searching for the Phoenix ancestral grounds, it was simply an excuse she had randomly made up. She never thought that her words would actually come true. Yes, it's the Ancestral Phoenix's lair. I was fortunate enough to meet Lord Ancestor Phoenix and receive his guidance. Knight Sorrow smiled and continued. This may be the will of the heavens. You and Jingyan deserve such an opportunity. If you discover any fortuitous opportunities, give them all to Auntie Fei. I won't take a single one. At this moment, Jingyan hurriedly shook her head. She couldn't help but admire what Wu Lingfei had done for the entire Yi clan. Hehe Jingyan, there's no need for that. It belongs to whoever gets it. Everyone had their own fortuitous encounters. You don't have to give the opportunity to me. Otherwise, everything will become meaningless. Wu Lingfei looked at Jingyan and said with an amiable smile. Haha, Auntie Fei is right. Let's wait and see. A smile appeared on Jingyan's face. We seem to have arrived outside. You guys continue chatting. I'm going out to settle some things. At this moment, Long Tianqing sent a voice transmission from outside. Knight Sorrow and the other girls said a few words before leaving the clear sky pagoda and appearing in the cloud ridge. The current cloud ridge was slightly different from the first time they came. Its aura seemed to be much colder. After Knight Sorrow and Long Tianqing appeared, the 13 eagles of the cloud ridge were pleasantly surprised. The eldest brother of the cloud ridge said gratefully, Our two benefactors have indeed rushed back. We, the 13 eagles of the Cloud Ridge, will never forget your kindness. If we can leave this place, we will definitely serve the two of you from now on. To be honest, I will be establishing my own divine realm in a few days, and I really need some manpower. If you have nowhere to go, you can follow me to battle, Knight Sorrow said. After experiencing the incident with Wu Lingfei, he felt that it was necessary to raise his strength as soon as possible. Therefore, he told the 13 of them about this matter. Divine realm? Establishing one's own divine realm with the strength of a divine lord? How badly will they be beaten up? The second mother of the Cloud Ridge was stunned for a moment first, but following that, she looked at Long Tianqing and said, "Makes sense. Although Knight Sorrow's benefactor is a divine lord, Senior Tianqing is the divine king. It's no different from the divine king's faction. Didn't you all see Knight Sorrow make a move before? His strength is stronger than mine." Hearing the second mother of the Cloud Ridge's words, Long Tianqing replied with a smile. "And that's true too. Benefactor Knight Sorrow's strength is indeed not what a divine lord level can shackle." Recalling the appearance of Knight Sorrow making a move, Cloud Ridge Old Four still had some lingering fear. The past is all in the past. We're friends now. Knight Sorrow glanced at Cloud Ridge Old Four and said, "I'm not someone who seeks revenge for the smallest grievance. The conflict between us ends here. Starting from now, Senior Tianqing and I will help you all leave with peace of mind." After speaking with Cloud Ridge Old Four, Knight Sorrow asked, "At present, what's the thing that's restricting you all from leaving?" "Right now, it's as if we're locked in an array formation. We don't have the ability to leave at all." Cloud Ridge Old Four pondered for a moment before saying, "In other words, we've been placed in the heaven and earth great array by that terrifying existence below and have become a part of it. If we want to leave, we have to break the array formation. Breaking the heaven and earth great array is very difficult," Long Tianqing immediately said with a frown after Cloud Ridge Old Four finished speaking. Then, she began to observe everything around her seriously, hoping to find some clues. "That's right. I have something to tell you all." Knight Sorrow, who was also observing, opened the sea serpent's eye and told everyone about how he had offended the Overlord of all heaven. "Since we're going to die anyway, let alone the Overlord of all heaven, we won't be afraid even if a prime appears." Cloud Ridge Old Four laughed when he heard Knight Sorrow's words. They would rather go against the Overlord of all heaven than continue to be tortured in the array formation. "Knight Sorrow, I have some clues." After observing for a while, Long Tianqing suddenly sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow. "What clues?" Knight Sorrow asked curiously. He, who had opened the sea serpent's eye to observe, couldn't find any clues for now. "I'm very familiar with the aura in the array formation. It belongs to an expert from a long time ago. I remember that she had obtained something called the Heaven and Earth Great Array Formation. It even caused a fight." The one who replied Knight Sorrow was Long Wushu. After saying that, he began to introduce the expert below. Her name was Lin Yunxi, and she was a talented female cultivator in the deity world. Her rise to fame was only second to Overlord Qing Yin, and the famous Overlord. Perhaps it was because the other two had become overlords that she felt that she had to break through to the Overlord realm. In the end, she failed. If I'm not wrong, the Heaven and Earth Great Array Formation should be here. As long as we find it, we can easily break the array formation before us. Chapter 27-25. If we can really find the Heaven and Earth formation map, it will be of great importance to the entire immortal domain. Knight Sorrow said excitedly. Once they were done here, they would head to Tianye's territory and establish the immortal domain. If he could set up a Heaven and Earth Great Formation in the immortal domain, it would be very useful. After all, using the power of heaven and earth to set up a formation was much more powerful than any other formation. That is indeed the case. If you can get it, your immortal domain will be much more stable. When the matter of the undying god domain was brought up, Long Wushu smiled and said, "However, don't be happy too early. The existence below was temperamental. If one were to say that Lord Voiceless Sound was a fairy, then she was the witch. Everyone must be careful. If you can avoid bumping into her, try not to. Currently, It was impossible to ascertain whether Lin Yunxi was truly dead or not. Long Wuxi reminded him. In the early years, Lin Yunxi was still very famous in the celestial realm, but her reputation wasn't very good. Not only was she temperamental, but she was also a little cruel and liked to torture people. From the way she treated the 13 eagles of Yunling, she is indeed a cruel woman. Hearing Long Wuxi's reminder, Knight Sorrow nodded his head and prepared to treat this matter seriously. After determining the general direction, they had to find the heaven and earth formation diagram first. He looked at the 13 Yunling eagles and asked, "Did the terrifying existence below leave anything behind? We need to find the array diagram to successfully break the array. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave at all." Knight Sorrow was telling the truth. If he didn't have the array diagram, he wouldn't have the ability to break the array. The great formation of heaven and earth in front of him was indeed set up exquisitely. Even he could not see through it. There aren't any clues. But we know that she sleeps down there. It's just that we don't know if he's dead or alive. When Boss Yunling heard Knight Sorrow's words, he immediately said, "If I'm not mistaken, she should have brought all of her spatial magical items with her. Formation diagrams should be the same. If this is the only possibility, then this matter is not easy to handle." The terrifying existence below was only a step away from becoming a sovereign, and was one of the legends of the god world. He really didn't want to dig up graves. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. For the sake of everyone's escape, we can investigate the situation below together. Seeing the troubled expression on Knight Sorrow's face, the second mother of Yunling immediately spoke. She was afraid that Knight Sorrow and Long Tianqing would leave immediately. "Don't be impulsive. Don't take this step unless you have no other choice." Digging up graves was undoubtedly a grudge that would not end until one of them was dead. Yi Shang felt that there was no need to completely offend that unknown existence, so he rejected this suggestion. At this time, Boss Yunling's expression suddenly changed and he said, "Not good." A divine king had entered the formation, and there were 4 divine kings. There's a strong killing intent on their bodies. The 4 divine king? Are you able to identify them? It's possible that the overlord of all heaven sent someone to target me. Knight Sorrow asked. Not only are they masked, but their auras have also been altered. It's impossible to tell their identities. After using the heaven and earth great array to sense them, Boss Yunling immediately described them to Knight Sorrow. Upon hearing this, Knight Sorrow immediately reacted. It was very likely that the overlord of all heaven felt that he didn't have enough divine kings, so he paid a price to find other divine kings in other regions. As for the divine king he found, he did not want to reveal his identity. Hence, he kept himself hidden. It should be. The 4 of them are wearing the same black robes. Their killing intent is astonishing, and they are getting closer and closer to us. Boss Yunling used the formation to sense everything and looked at Knight Sorrow worriedly. There are 4 divine kings. We can deal with one, but there's really no way to deal with the other 3. Are we going to fight or run? Why run? It's just 4 divine kings. Let's fight. With the help of the heaven and earth great array, our chances are very high. Yi Shang said firmly. He had no intention of backing down from the battle. He also knew that this predicament was something he would definitely encounter in the overlord of all heaven's territory. It was already very good that only 4 divine kings had appeared. Good. Then let's fight. We believe that our benefactor Knight Sorrow, as the virtuous divine lord, has the protection of the providence of heaven and earth. There won't be any problems. Boss Yunling didn't show any fear when he heard Knight Sorrow's words. After all, with the help of the heaven and earth great array, the 13 eagles of Yunling had fought against the divine king. Haha. Knight Sorrow, we finally caught up to you. Just as Knight Sorrow and Boss Yunling were talking, a roar came from the void. Afterwards, 4 black-robed god kings who had used a special technique to conceal their faces, such that even Yi Shang's clam dragons I could not see through them, descended around them. You must have been hired by the overlord of all heaven to deal with me, right? Judging from your attire, you probably don't want to expose your identities. Knight Sorrow released the power of his divine spirit, and sensed everyone. He discovered that the auras of the 4 divine kings were very chaotic. He couldn't determine their identities at all. However, he knew that there must be some old acquaintances among them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have disguised themselves like this. You already know the answer to your question. How can someone who took advantage of the overlord of all heaven's territory leave safely without being investigated? One of the divine kings sneered. We won't make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over the overlord god artifact, this matter will be over. You call me the overlord god artifact? Why don't you just kill me? When he heard the other party's words, Yishang smiled noncommittally. Surrendering without a fight wasn't his style. Since you want to die, we won't be polite. You will soon realize that you made the wrong choice. The killing intent of the God King who had just spoken immediately exploded out. Don't be afraid. Let's do it. Brother Jinya, come out and help. You only need to pin down one of them. As for Senior Long Wushu, you don't have to do anything. I feel that as long as you do something, all heaven will do it. Night Sorrow called Jinya out of the clear sky pagoda and transmitted a message to Long Wushu. He knew that as long as Long Wushu made a move, all heaven would disregard his reputation and attack personally. Fortunately, he didn't ask him to come out. Ha! Could it be that your thoughts are still so clear in such a situation? Long Wushu, who had received Night Sorrow's message, smiled and said, I will support you. I will ensure that all heaven won't attack you. Okay. Thank you, Senior. Night Sorrow replied to Long Wushu. Then he transmitted a message to Boss Yunling. Open the heaven and earth great formation. Help me pin down one of them. Then he transmitted a message to Long Tianqing. Senior Tianqing, help me pin down one of them too. I will think of a way to get rid of one of them as soon as possible. They shouldn't be able to do anything in the heaven and earth great formation. Chapter 27-26. Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array Activate. After Night Sorrow spoke, the Cloud Ridge boss immediately understood. He silently chanted the incantation and activated the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array. After the array was activated, the demonic spirits that had once destroyed the 13 eagles of Cloud Ridge appeared once more. The mountain peaks that had been stacked together once more transformed into stone pillars that reached the heavens. However, the azure sky that had appeared the last time the array was activated did not reappear. Instead, it was replaced by thick black clouds that flashed with lightning and rumbled with thunder. It looked as if someone was about to undergo a tribulation. What kind of array is this? It looks a little strange. After the array was activated, one of the 4 black-robed divine kings immediately said warily, Didn't that person say that there is a formation here? It won't affect the overall situation. What we need to pay attention to is the sovereign divine weapon in Night Sorrow's hands, said another as he charged at Night Sorrow, preparing to fight. The other 3 faced off against Long Tianqing, Jinya, and the 13 eagles of Cloud Ridge. A divine king? There aren't many divine kings like you in the divine world. Who exactly are you? Night Sorrow could tell from his aura that his opponent was a divine king, but even with the sea serpent's eye, he couldn't see through his opponent's identity. Haha. Since you're hiding your identity, it means you don't want to be exposed. I heard that you came from the lower realms and have the potential to become the next sovereign divine weapon. Today this seat will kill you. The black-robed divine king sneered as he punched out. It was a simple and unadorned punch, but the aura it exuded gave Yishan a lot of pressure. Could this be the ability of a high-level divine king? Night Sorrow couldn't help but mutter to himself. His opponent's casual punch made him feel that he could only use Tianyun Bao to resist. At the same time, he activated the 33 Heavens secret combat technique to increase his strength. Then he unhesitatingly shot out the heavenly cloud arrow. At this moment, Tianyun Bao didn't drink any blood. This arrow was purely an experimental attack. He clashed with the black-clothed divine king's fist, but he didn't gain any advantage. He merely neutralized the punch. Haha, an ant will always be an ant. You only barely managed to block an ordinary punch from me after using a sovereign-level divine artifact. The black-clothed divine king's fist collided with the heavenly cloud arrow, and he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. This level of strength gave him great confidence. After all, as a divine king, he had an innate fear of sovereigns. He was extremely wary of sovereigns before taking action. The battle has only just begun. I hope you still have the same confidence when it's over. Tianyun Bao's arrow only blocked his opponent's ordinary punch. Although Knight Sorrow was a little surprised, he did not panic. After replying, he used the ruler stone he had just obtained to strengthen the other 8 sky cloud arrows. You dare to refine weapons in front of me? Is this a trap? Seeing Knight Sorrow brazenly refining weapons in the middle of a battle, the black-clothed Divine King was astonished. He wondered if there was a conspiracy going on. At this moment, he felt his divine yuan energy being rapidly absorbed by the heaven and earth spirit gathering array. He immediately shouted, "The 3 of you pay attention. The array before us is a little strange." "You don't need to tell us that. We all feel it." The Divine King, who was fighting Jin Ye, replied in an unfriendly tone. "At this rate, it won't be long before we run out of divine yuan energy. If we want to kill them, we must first break the array." That person said that this is the heaven and earth spirit gathering array, and that it won't be that easy to break. We should attack with all our strength and quickly kill them. Number 1. Are you confident in killing Knight Sorrow and seizing Tianyun Bao? The Divine King, who was locked in a stalemate with Long Tianqing, asked. "If nothing unexpected happens, I can quickly kill him." The black-clothed Divine King, who was called Number 1, coldly replied. Then he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, "I don't care if you're trying to be mysterious or not. This god will quickly kill you." He was still trying to figure out why Knight Sorrow was refining weapons in front of him, but after speaking, he immediately used a supreme technique. Empyrean Tiger Subduing Fist. At this moment, the 8 heavenly cloud arrows, which were being strengthened by Knight Sorrow, were still floating in the air. In the face of the high-ranked Divine King's attack, Knight Sorrow tossed out the ruler's stone for the heavenly cloud arrows to absorb. Then he held the Tianyun Bao and used it as a melee weapon as he swatted it at his opponent. He knew that with his opponent's strength, his chances of escaping were slim, so he could only choose to take it head-on. The Samsara Heavenly Halberd was no longer enough to deal with such an attack, so he directly used the Tianyun Bao. As for its effect, he wasn't sure. Using a Sovereign Divine Bao as a melee weapon, you are truly wasting a treasure. Go to hell, ant. The world of the Divine King is not a place where a divine monarch ant like you can wreak havoc. Seeing Knight Sorrow actually swatting the Tianyun Bao at him, the Divine King, who had used a supreme technique, scolded disdainfully. Then he punched the Tianyun Bao. Boom. There was a loud sound. The Divine King, who had been full of confidence, was immediately sent flying. He felt as if his body was about to shatter. He said in disbelief, "What's going on? Just now when a Dominator rank shot out an arrow, I received it. How could I be sent flying? Number 1. Are you stupid? Using your fist to attack a sovereign divine weapon? Do you think your body is as strong as a sovereign's?" The Divine King, who was fighting Long Tianqing, immediately said angrily. The way he saw it, a God King using his fists to strike a Dominator artifact was an extremely stupid act. In fact, that was exactly the case. The black-clothed Divine King, who was fighting Knight Sorrow, was too arrogant. "I was too careless. A sovereign divine weapon is indeed not simple." The black-clothed Divine King, who had been injured by Tianyun Bao, coughed up blood and immediately swallowed a few pills to recover from his injuries. At the same time, the Divine King, who was fighting Jin Ye, pierced Jin Ye's shoulder with his sword and sent him flying. Then he chased after Jin Ye, wanting to kill him. Seeing this scene, Knight Sorrow, who had already finished strengthening 8 heavenly cloud arrows, reached out and grabbed the heavenly cloud arrow. Then he raised his hand and shot a heavenly cloud arrow at the Divine King, who was still trying to kill Jin Ye. Buzz. The heavenly cloud arrow, which had been strengthened and repaired by the sovereign stone, immediately caused the void to tremble. The Divine King, who had wanted to kill Jin Ye in one shot, would have definitely killed Jin Ye if he had continued to attack. However, they had clearly been hired by the ruler of all heaven, and didn't want to risk their lives. Facing the heavenly cloud arrow, he immediately chose to give up on attacking and use his movement technique to dodge. However, he didn't expect that Tianyun Bao's arrow could automatically track him. Night Sorrow's heavenly cloud arrow followed closely behind, showing no signs of stopping. Chapter 27:27. On the other side, Long Tianqing and the 13 eagles of Yunling weren't in a good condition either. Yi Shan extended his hand and took out 2 heavenly cloud arrows. He shot them at the god kings they were battling, helping them share the pressure. At the same time, he saw that the god king he was fighting against had swallowed a pill, and was using the pill to heal his injured body. Night Sorrow didn't choose to attack him immediately. Instead, he took out the other 2 ruler's stones from Long Wushu and started to heal the Tianyun Bao. According to what Long Wushu said, the Tianyun Bao had already consumed a lot of energy. If he didn't heal it quickly, not only would its power be greatly reduced, it might even be destroyed. When Night Sorrow was fighting the black-clothed Divine King, he could feel that the Tianyun Bao was much weaker than before. He confirmed what Long Wushu had said. "Aunt, instead of attacking me while I was injured by the ruler's divine weapon, you actually repaired it after you finished refining it. You really don't know what's important." The Divine King, who originally wanted to say that Long Wushu didn't know what was good for him, recalled what he had just said and changed his words. "You are about to become a target, and you are still boasting shamelessly. What a joke." The black-clothed Divine King gave Night Sorrow a lot of pressure when he attacked just now. If he hadn't used the Tianyun Bao to injure the other party, he probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. However, at this moment, Night Sorrow's confidence gradually rose. He could feel that the auras of the 4 Divine King were continuously weakening. The auras of the 13 eagles of Yunling were continuously strengthening. At this moment, they were already extremely powerful. All of this was naturally related to the Heaven and Earth Energy Gathering Array. Not good. The Heaven and Earth Energy Gathering Array is becoming more and more powerful. We have to end the battle quickly. Everyone, don't hold back and use your best skills. Don't worry about whether we will be exposed. Realizing that the Heaven and Earth Energy Gathering Array was becoming more and more powerful, the Divine King, who was fighting Long Tianqing, said anxiously. At this moment, he was distracted by a heavenly cloud arrow and couldn't take down Long Tianqing, who was being guided by Long Wushu. Although Long Wushu didn't make a move due to Luo Tian's threat, his guidance was very important. Otherwise, Long Tianqing wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Good. I have a premonition that if we continue to delay, we will be defeated. The Divine King, who was originally full of confidence, also became cautious. Quick! Save me! Save me! At this moment, the God King fighting the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles shouted with all his might. What's going on? The other 3 God Kings immediately looked over and used the power of their souls to investigate what was happening. Wushu. S's Divine Wushu. And Wushu was Wushu Wushu. S Wushu's. T. Ite of the Wushu S God. S Wushu Wushu. Wushu. Wushu Wushu. You're so flustered. You don't look like the Divine King at all. The Divine King, who was fighting against Jin Nye, immediately mocked in dissatisfaction. It's my fault. The Divine King, who had just shouted, apologized again. Why do I feel like your tone is weird? The Divine King, who was fighting against Long Tianqing, questioned suspiciously. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, Long Tianqing found an opportunity and struck him with her palm. Don't get distracted again, finish off your opponent quickly. The Divine King in front of Night Sorrow saw that he was injured and immediately reminded him. At the same time, he completely recovered and took out a king-level divine cauldron from his spatial artifact. He looked at Night Sorrow and said coldly, "Aunt, you will regret not making a move just now." As he spoke, he hovered the king-grade divine cauldron above his head, preparing to launch an attack. "You think too much." Night Sorrow had a relaxed expression on his face. As he spoke, he poured blood into Tianyun Bao. After absorbing a large amount of blood, Tianyun Bao gradually grew a reverse scale. "Husband, this is my blood. Pour it into the bao." At that moment, Lin Piaomiao, who was in the clear sky pagoda, suddenly spoke and poured out a large amount of blood. All right. At this critical juncture, Night Sorrow didn't stand on ceremony. He poured Lin Piaomiao's blood into Tianyun Bao as well. In an instant, Tianyun Bao, who had already improved a lot, blossomed with resplendent light. Husband, there's mine too. I hope it will be of some use. Jingyan also didn't hesitate to pour out her own blood. Her bloodline was also very powerful. Of course, compared to Lin Piaomiao's Paragon bloodline, it was definitely inferior. It's also effective. Looks like Tianyun Bao's appetite is very big. After Night Sorrow poured in Jingyan's blood, Tianyun Bao blossomed with even more light. Wu Lingfei, who was in the clear sky pagoda, immediately took out some of her own blood and said, "It's better than nothing. Give it a try. It can be considered as my contribution to everyone." "All right. Aunt Fei, I'll give it a try." Night Sorrow naturally wouldn't reject Wu Lingfei at this moment. He poured her blood into Tianyun Bao. Just as Wu Lingfei's blood was completely absorbed, the reverse scale on the body of the heaven cloud Bao had completely disappeared and was replaced by phoenix symbols. These symbols were different from the ones that had appeared before. After they appeared, they immediately turned into 4 small phoenixes that flew out and surrounded the body of the Bao. Tianyun Bao's bowstring also vibrated by itself. This is a sign that the sovereign artifact is about to be activated. Hurry up and do it, or we won't be able to resist. Luo Tian, who had been hiding all this time, immediately transmitted his voice to the 4 divine kings in battle when he saw the scene in front of him. What? The sovereign artifact is about to be activated? So it, which was so powerful just now, actually hasn't been activated yet. Upon hearing Luo Tian's reminder, the divine king, who was fighting Night Sorrow, immediately exclaimed in shock. At the same time, he controlled the king-grade divine cauldron and combined it with his own divine domain to suppress Night Sorrow. As an upper divine king, he was still very powerful when he didn't suppress his divine origin energy and used his divine artifact. Night Sorrow immediately felt his movements become slow due to the powerful interference of his divine domain. He, who was drawing his bow, was moving in slow motion. Ha! The difference in cultivation realm can't be made up for by a divine artifact. No matter how powerful a divine artifact is, it's a waste if no one is controlling it. Seeing Night Sorrow's movements, the divine king, who was attacking him, immediately became smug. Buzz. At this moment, the bowstring of the Tianyun Bao in Night Sorrow's hand suddenly vibrated violently. The divine domain that was suppressing Night Sorrow instantly vanished. He immediately shot out 3 heaven cloud arrows in succession. What's going on? Could it be that this sovereign artifact Bao has given birth to an artifact spirit? Tianyun Bao's self-vibration shattered the divine domain. The black-robed divine king, who was controlling the king-grade divine cauldron to suppress Night Sorrow, was instantly shocked. If a sovereign artifact like Tianyun Bao had given birth to an artifact spirit, they definitely wouldn't be able to resist. Chapter 27-28. Awaken an artifact spirit? If I awaken an artifact spirit, I would have shot all of you to smithereens. The All-Heaven ruler snorted unhappily and reminded, they are relying on their bloodline power to temporarily awaken the Tianyun Bao. They are not invincible. The 4 of you, attack Night Sorrow with all your might. At the same time, he suddenly tampered with the Heaven and Earth Great Array, temporarily suppressing it. He then attacked Long Tianqing, Jinya, and the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles, suppressing them. Because he was afraid of Night Sorrow, he didn't attack him directly. Yes, Lord Ruler. Realizing that his opponent was being suppressed, Long Tianqing's opponent immediately turned his spear around and attacked Yishan. Jinya's opponent did the same. Good timing. The 3 divine kings attacked him at the same time, but Night Sorrow didn't show any fear. He held 3 heavenly cloud arrows in his hands, pulled back the activated Tianyun Bao, and shot a heavenly cloud arrow at each of the 3 divine kings. The moment Night Sorrow shot the heavenly cloud arrow, Long Wuxiu, who had realized that the All-Heaven ruler had attacked, immediately came out of Long Tianqing's spatial artifact and helped to restrain the divine king that Long Tianqing was fighting. Boom! The imprisoned God King had no chance to dodge the heavenly cloud arrow at all, and was immediately struck by it. Half of his body, including his left arm, was blasted into pieces, and he let out a miserable howl. Divine Origin Dragon Lock Formation. Night Sorrow used the Divine Origin Dragon Lock Formation on the Divine King that Jinya was fighting. He knew that this formation wasn't much of a threat to the Divine King. It could only be used to catch them off guard. Boom. Just as Yi Shang had expected, when the God King was trapped by the Divine Origin Dragonlock formation, he immediately became rather stunned. By the time he tried to break through the formation, it was already rather late. The Heavenly Cloud arrow struck him heavily. His strength was the weakest among the 4 Divine King. His lower body, which reached his waist, was directly blasted apart. He looked very miserable. The Divine King, who was fighting against Night Sorrow, was not targeted. He used the Divine Cauldron to block the Heavenly Cloud arrow's attack. Although his King-grade Divine Cauldron had been pierced by the Heavenly Cloud arrow, he was not injured. Bastard! All of you are useless. Luo Tian had cheated to help, but the Divine King still suffered losses. This made him furious. However, he didn't want to completely fall out with Long Wushu. Thus, he didn't continue to attack. Die. At this moment, something that made Luo Tian even more enraged occurred. The Divine King, who was fighting against the 13 Eagles of Yunling, suddenly launched a sneak attack on the Divine King, who was fighting against Night Sorrow. The sword had actually pierced through his dantian. Moreover, after he lost the ability to resist, he reached out and crushed his Divine Sea, directly destroying his Divine Soul. What are you doing? How dare you betray this sovereign? Luo Tian gnashed his teeth when he saw the scene in front of him. The aura of a sovereign immediately erupted from his body. Betray. Hearing Luo Tian's roar, the Divine King, who was fighting against the 13 Eagles of Yunling, suddenly raised his head and smiled strangely. You are the person under the array? Luo Tian looked at the other party. When he saw the other party's smile, he immediately discovered something strange. It's me. I didn't want to come out so early, but you provided so much nourishment that I couldn't help but come out and absorb it. With a strange laugh, Lin Yunqi suddenly let out a roar. The area covered by the Great Spiritual Gathering Array was instantly filled with a bone-chilling roar. The Divine King, who was possessed by Lin Yunqi, directly exploded. After that, the demon spirit in the Great Spiritual Gathering Array went crazy and absorbed the blood mist in the air. In the blink of an eye, the God King was completely absorbed. What the hell is this? In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 4 godly monarchs targeting Yi Sorrow had been killed. The remaining 2 immediately felt their scalps go numb. Lin Yunqi, it's you. How dare you bare your fangs and brandish your claws in front of this sovereign? Die. He had paid a huge price to invite 4 Divine Kings to surround and kill Night Sorrow. In an instant, 2 of them died, and the other 2 were heavily injured. Luo Tian was so angry that he almost went crazy. He directly attacked the Great Spiritual Gathering Array. Not good. Night Sorrow, take note. He has an ulterior motive. Be careful. Long Wushu immediately shouted after Luo Tian attacked. Although the other party was attacking from thousands of miles away, he could clearly determine the other party's intentions. Senior, take the bow. Night Sorrow knew that he couldn't block the attack of Luo Tian's sovereign, so he immediately handed over the activated Tianyan bow. Haha, good bow. Let me have a taste of what it's like to fight against a sovereign. In the end, Heavenly Cloud bow and Heavenly Cloud arrows. Long Wushu laughed loudly and shot towards Luo Tian's attack. Boom. The Heavenly Cloud arrow exploded in the air. However, Luo Tian's attack was also neutralized. As expected of a sovereign-grade divine artifact, its power is indeed impressive. It can actually block a sovereign's attack. Again. Long Wushu waved his hand in the air. Under Night Sorrow's instructions, 2 more Heavenly Cloud arrows appeared in his hand. However, just as Long Wushu was about to attack again, Night Sorrow reminded him, Senior Long, if Luo Tian doesn't attack again, we shouldn't take the initiative to attack. After all, there's another terrifying existence here. I, Lin Yunqi, don't want to be a sinner of the divine world. I won't attack you. At that moment, a cold voice rang out. At the same time, a ghostly figure appeared and killed the other 2 Divine King. After that, she used her demon spirit to absorb them. It's best if you don't attack. If you want to harm Night Sorrow, I will attack immediately. Although Lin Yunqi said that, Long Wushu, who was holding on to Tianyan Bao, was still on guard. After Lin Yunqi appeared, her methods were too cruel. He couldn't help but be careful. If I, Lin Yunxi, want to attack, all of you will die here. After absorbing a large amount of energy, Lin Yunxi's voice rang out again. At the same time, the area where the heaven and earth energy gathering array was located suddenly collapsed. A bottomless abyss appeared. After that, a transparent crystal coffin slowly rose from the ground. Before anyone could react, all the god's spiritual qi in the surroundings was absorbed by it. Even the light emitted by Tianyun Bao was absorbed. Bang! After the transparent coffin absorbed a large amount of god's spiritual qi, the lid of the coffin directly shattered. A red-robed woman with a blurry face, but an enchanting figure stood up from the coffin. Looking at the sky, she said, "Sovereign of Luo Tian, come and fight." Come and fight? Hearing this, Night Sorrow and the rest were stunned. Even Long Wushu couldn't react. Her aura was clearly not that of a sovereign. She shouldn't have broken through to the sovereign realm. Yet, she shouted at Luo Tian and said that she wanted to fight. "If you have the ability, come out and fight. Don't think that I don't know that you have the strength to challenge a sovereign in that array." Luo Tian, who was in the sky, replied with a cold laugh. "Is that so? Then I'll go out and fight." Chapter 27-29. Aha! You're a barefooted person who isn't afraid of wearing shoes. Now that the extraterrestrial demons are causing trouble, I still have to bear the heavy responsibility of protecting the God realm. I won't lower myself to your level today. When Luo Tian saw Lin Yunxi fly out of the heaven and earth great array, he immediately became alert. He checked whether there were other sovereigns or the powerful divine king around. If one wanted to reach the sovereign level in the God realm, it was necessary to obtain the sovereign's origin. Luo Tian was afraid that he would be injured in battle and attract the attention of others. If he was surrounded, even a sovereign might not be able to survive. Luo Tian, as a sovereign, you don't even have the courage to fight the divine king. I, Lin Yunxi, look down on you. As a sovereign, Luo Tian's speed was naturally extremely fast. He left after replying. Lin Yunxi did not chase after him. Instead, she sighed. Why can this kind of person reach the sovereign level, but I can't? Her words were filled with intense bitterness and helplessness. I'm afraid it's not time yet. I also can't step through that door for a long time. Lin Yunxi's words made Long Wushu sigh. As the son of the ancestral dragon, he had been unable to break through to the sovereign level. Although his battle strength was astonishing, he also felt regret in his heart. Our strength is about the same. Why don't we go to other realms to look for opportunities to break through? I feel that if you want to reach the sovereign level in the God realm, unless you are extremely lucky, it's impossible. Lin Yunxi invited. You want to go to the eternal supreme world? Hearing Lin Yunxi's invitation, Long Wushu asked. Other than there shouldn't be any other realms where it's easy to break through to the sovereign level or higher. Yes. I want to go to the eternal supreme world to look for opportunities. If I don't become a sovereign, I swear I won't give up. Lin Yunxi said firmly. You are really stubborn. However, I heard that if you want to reach the eternal supreme world, you have to go through countless difficulties and dangers. Unless there's someone to receive you. Long Wushu said. Will there be someone there to receive you? To be honest, there isn't. If there was, I wouldn't still be in the God realm. Lin Yunxi sighed. Now that I'm infinitely close to the sovereign level, I'm prepared to enter the eternal supreme world through that entrance. That place is too dangerous. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was a 9 out of 10 chance of dying. Long Wushu sighed. Seniors, what are you talking about? Night Sorrow asked. He had just gotten to know Lin Yunxi, so he was wondering if he should tell her that the Ancestor Phoenix ancestor was preparing to bring him over. The Celestial Demonic Chasm. Legend has it that if you leave the God realm from there, you can reach the Eternal Supreme Realm. Lin Yunxi explained to Night Sorrow. Senior, must you go? Night Sorrow continued to ask. He was still considering. Actually, advancing to Dominator rank is only one of my goals. There's someone I must meet there. I want to ask him something. When she said this, Lin Yunxi's originally blurry face seemed to clear up a little. But very quickly, it became blurry again. In that brief moment, Yishang noticed that there were tears rolling down her cheeks. Senior, are you troubled by love? Night Sorrow asked when he noticed the other party's expression. It wasn't very polite to ask such a question, but he still had the ability to bring her over. This matter has been hidden in my heart for who knows how many years. Lin Yunxi was silent for a moment when she heard Night Sorrow's words. Then she said, I once had a very good playmate. Later, we became childhood sweethearts. We even swore to be engaged to each other. At this point, Lin Yunxi's blurry face became clear. She had a devastatingly beautiful face, but it was a weeping beauty. After a moment of silence, she continued. Originally, our relationship was very good, but later, he was brought to the Eternal Supreme Realm by my father. When he left, he said that he would come back for me once he became a dominator. Since then, there has been no news of him. As for me, I was unable to cultivate to the dominator rank. I could only rely on reincarnation to live one life after another. I even did some things that destroyed my conscience, but I was still unable to cultivate to the dominator rank. I had no choice but to go to the Eternal Supreme Realm. There's such a thing? Night Sorrow cultivated the power of virtue, so he could tell that Lin Yunxi was telling the truth. He sighed with emotion. Night Sorrow, for a woman like this, help her if you can. Night Sorrow's wife and daughter saw Lin Yunxi, who had not shown any fear even when facing the ruler of all heaven, standing between heaven and earth and crying so sadly, and their hearts were filled with compassion. However, the first to speak was Wu Lingfei. Although she did not know that Night Sorrow could be taken to the Eternal Supreme Realm as long as he broke through to the Divine King, she still spoke up. Night Sorrow fell silent when he heard this. In fact, he did not dare to tell his family that he was likely to go to the Eternal Supreme Realm. His idea was to cultivate a doppelganger. When the time came, either his true body or his doppelganger would go. This way, it would not affect his ability to accompany and protect his family. Husband, if you have the ability, please help her. Look at how pitiful she is. She has a shocking cultivation, but she can't do anything about the only obsession in her heart. Sikong Chuyu also sighed with emotion, but then she added, Of course. You can help her, but you can't endanger your own safety. Yes. Little 13, such a devoted woman is rare in this world. Although she might have done some bad things, she wasn't a bad person. If we can help, we should still help. Yang Lei also spoke up. All right. I will help her within the limits of my ability. Night Sorrow responded to Wu Lingfei and his wife in the clear sky pagoda, then transmitted his voice to Lin Yunxi. Senior, in addition to what you said, I also want to ask about the 13 Yunling eagles. You captured them here to guard the great spirit gathering array of heaven and earth, and I can accept that. But why do you keep using demon spirits to torture them? If he did not ask clearly, he would have a knot in his heart. Although Night Sorrow felt the same about Lin Yunxi, he felt that she should not torture the 13 Yunling eagles like that. Haha, I'm not the one torturing them. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Lin Yunxi smiled sadly and said, You probably know that they were once controlled by the extraterrestrial demon. Look at them again. Do they even have a trace of the extraterrestrial demon's shadow on them now? Senior, you mean to say that the extraterrestrial demon's aura on them was removed by you? Night Sorrow asked doubtfully. It's true that I absorbed the energy in their bodies to recover, but I also absorbed all the extraterrestrial demon's aura on them. Because of that, they could completely recover. Otherwise, they would have long become a shell controlled by the extraterrestrial demon. Chapter 2730. Night Sorrow didn't even need to use the eye of the sea serpent to sense that Lin Yunxi's aura contained a large amount of extraterrestrial demon's aura. He immediately exclaimed, Senior, you've absorbed so much extraterrestrial demon's evil aura. Aren't you afraid of turning into a demon? So what if I turn into a demon? It's better than having my soul destroyed and completely disappearing. At least, I still have a chance to reach the eternal supreme world. Otherwise, my obsession will never be realized. Lin Yunxi let out a mournful sigh. After releasing the terrifying evil aura from her body, her devastatingly beautiful face instantly disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a face full of black qi. She looked like an Azura from hell. She's also a pitiful person. If it were me, I'm afraid I'd make the same choice. Sometimes, choosing to live is even more difficult than choosing to die. Long Wushu sighed deeply. Indeed, it's not easy. Night Sorrow nodded in agreement. He looked at the 13 eagles of Yunling and said, "Now that the matter is clear, why aren't you thanking Senior Yunshi?" He could sense that Lin Yunshi wasn't lying. Someone as obsessed as her wouldn't lie like this. Moreover, he had asked through telepathy, while Lin Yunshi had answered directly. Everyone present had heard clearly what was going on. When the 13 eagles of Yunling heard Night Sorrow's words, they immediately knelt on the ground and thanked Lin Yunshi. Lin Yunshi looked at them and said softly, "You can choose not to believe my words, because I've already removed the memories of the extraterrestrial demons' invasion in your minds." "No. We believe, Senior. Thank you for your kindness." The eldest Yunling, who was kneeling on the ground, immediately kowtowed 3 times. The others followed suit and thanked her. At this moment Lin Yunshi said, "From now on you're completely free." "Thank you, Senior Yunshi." When Lin Yunshi said this, she didn't feel much, but the 13 eagles of Yunling immediately felt their bodies relax. After thanking Lin Yunshi, they knelt down and thanked Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing. Long Tianqing said politely, "You should thank Night Sorrow for this. In the near future, Night Sorrow will establish his own divine realm. You can help him fight for a few years." "It's not just a few years. We're all homeless now. Naturally, we'll choose to stay by Lord Night Sorrow's side forever." The second mother of the Cloud Ridge had regained her freedom. Her tone had a hint of sobbing. "We'll listen to second sister." The other members of the 13 eagles of Yunling chimed in. At this time, Night Sorrow shook his head and said, "Everyone, there's no need to make such a heavy oath. How about this? If any of you can break through to the Divine King level, you can leave the Immortal Dominion and establish your own sect. What do you think?" "That works too. However, our talents are limited, and we don't know if we'll have the chance to cultivate to the level of the Divine King in this lifetime. There's no point in talking about this, haha," Yunling boss said with a smile. Then he gave the other members of the 13 eagles of Yunling a look. Under his signal, the other members of the 13 eagles of Yunling stood up and bowed to Night Sorrow. "The 13 eagles of Yunling pay our respects to the Region Master. From today onwards, we'll be at your beck and call. We'll never betray you. Hehe. Everyone, please rise." The Immortal Dominion had just been established, so it would definitely need a lot of manpower. Now that the 13 eagles of Yunling had joined them, he felt that the team had become much stronger. He was very happy. At the very least, he would be able to protect his family. "Yes, Region Master." The 13 eagles of Yunling replied in unison. Night Sorrow looked at Lin Yunshi and Long Wushu and said, "Seniors, please wait for a moment. I'll introduce them to the other members of the Immortal Dominion." "Go on." Long Wushu knew that Night Sorrow was going to bring the 13 eagles of Yunling into his spatial equipment. He waved his hand. Lin Yunshi nodded. She understood that Night Sorrow definitely had something to say. After that, Night Sorrow brought the 13 eagles of Yunling into the Clear Sky Pagoda and introduced them to his family and friends, as well as Xiao Tianxuan's clansmen. The only thing he didn't introduce was the Horn clan. Although the 13 eagles of Yunling had already sworn an oath to the heavens that they wouldn't do anything harmful to the Immortal Dominion, there was no guarantee that experts would be able to read their memories. If news of the Horn clan was leaked, the entire Immortal Dominion would be targeted. Even if Sovereign Tian Yi spoke up, he wouldn't be able to suppress the other sovereigns. After all, the Horn clan had the innate ability to search for treasures. No one could ignore that. Especially greedy sovereigns like Luo Tian and Dark Moon. If they knew about it, they would definitely do anything to get what they wanted. "Brother, you should familiarize yourself with them. I still have something to discuss with the 2 seniors." After a brief introduction, Night Sorrow handed the 13 eagles of Yunling over to Xianjizi to receive them while he left the Clear Sky Pagoda. When he saw Lin Yunshi and Long Wushu, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to them. "I won't hide it from the 2 seniors. If Night Sorrow advances to the Divine King, he will be brought to the Eternal Sovereign World by a senior. If you 2 are interested, I can bring you there." You actually have such a fortuitous encounter? Long Wuxi was surprised to hear Night Sorrow's words. He asked, "Who is the one who approached you?" The answer he wanted was naturally his father, the ancestral dragon. It's the ancestral phoenix. Night Sorrow naturally knew what Long Wuxi wanted to know. After replying, he said, "When the ancestral phoenix appears again, I will ask about the ancestral dragon on behalf of Senior Long. Then I'll have to thank you." Long Wuxi thanked him. "In the future, if your divine realm encounters any danger, my ancestral dragon sect will be at your beck and call. Then Senior Long, will you consider going to the eternal sovereign world?" Night Sorrow continued asking. Long Wuxi sighed. "To be honest, ever since I found out about the eternal sovereign world, I wanted to go. But I can't go now because I can't leave. If I leave, the dragons of Yunling will suffer a blow. I won't be able to withstand it." Long Wuxi told him about the matter between him and Long Wuxi. "Seems like there are fights everywhere." Night Sorrow sighed and transmitted his voice to Lin Yunxi. "Senior, what do you think? Do you still need to ask?" Lin Yunxi replied. "But I want to know how long you need to advance to the Divine King. If it takes too long, I still want to go to the heavenly moat of the Divine Realm, because I won't be able to hold on for long before I lose myself to the evil aura of the extraterrestrial demons. I feel that if I advance to the Divine King, I won't be slower than anyone in the history of the Divine Realm. But I have just advanced to the Divine Monarch Realm, so I still need some time." Night Sorrow said honestly. Chapter 2731. I think it'll take at least a few thousand or tens of thousands of years. Night Sorrow replied after some thought. He felt that with the Clear Sky Pagoda's space acceleration, if he had enough luck, breaking through to the Divine King realm should be very fast. A few thousand or tens of thousands of years to break through from the lower Divine Monarch realm to the Divine King realm. What you said, is it true? You're not blindly confident, are you? Lin Yunxi asked doubtfully. Before Night Sorrow, even if he was the most talented person in the divine world, it would take an unknown number of years to break through from the lower Divine Monarch realm to the Divine King realm. She wasn't sure if Night Sorrow's words were exaggerated. If there are no accidents, I should be able to do it. After all, it hasn't been long since I started cultivating from the lower Divine Monarch realm. Even with the space acceleration, it's only a few hundred years. Night Sorrow said confidently. With the path of virtue, he wouldn't encounter any bottlenecks in his cultivation. As long as he absorbed enough virtue energy, he would be able to smoothly cultivate to the Divine King realm. Lin Yunxi and Long Wuxi were speechless after hearing Night Sorrow's words. Cultivating from the Divine Monarch realm to the Divine Monarch realm in a few hundred years, and having the ability to fight the Divine King. Not to mention these 3,000 reincarnations. Even in the divine world, there hadn't been a single person like this since the birth of the divine world. At this time, Long Tianqing smiled and said, "When I met Night Sorrow, he was indeed a divine monarch who had just ascended from the lower realm. It hasn't been long since then." It's not that it hasn't been long, it's too short. If there are no accidents, Night Sorrow will definitely become the #1 person in the divine world in the future. Long Wuxi sighed in admiration. The way you look at Night Sorrow is also different. After thinking for a while, he said, "If the divine world encounters danger in the future, we dragons will come out of our caves." Thank you, Senior Long. Although Night Sorrow felt that the divine world should rely on himself, he didn't say it with absolute certainty. At this time, Lin Yunxi smiled and said, "That's true. If you weren't such a genius, how would you have received the recognition of the Eternal Supreme Realm? I've waited for countless years. I don't mind waiting a few more days. I can still hold on for hundreds of thousands of years. The dark aura of the extraterrestrial demons can't do anything to me for now. You don't have to persist at all. I can help you get rid of the extraterrestrial demon's aura." Night Sorrow smiled as he unleashed his power of virtue, which transformed into a dragon of virtue that circled around Lin Yunxi. At the same time he said, "Senior Yunxi, I, Night Sorrow, have offended you." As he spoke, Night Sorrow activated the sea serpent's eye to observe Lin Yunxi's body. Doing so would allow him to see her body, which was somewhat impolite. In response, Lin Yunqi said indifferently, "You and I are both cultivators. Why should we care about these complicated formalities?" With the power of merit in her body, she immediately felt that her body was different. The aura of the extraterrestrial demons that had been wreaking havoc around her body was like a mouse that had seen a cat. They immediately began to flee frantically. However, Night Sorrow had the help of the sea serpent dragon's eye. He could clearly see the direction of the extraterrestrial demon aura. Soon he removed all the extraterrestrial demon aura from his meridians. "Senior Yunqi, the extraterrestrial demon aura that has been troubling you has been completely removed," Night Sorrow said with a smile after helping her remove the hidden dangers. "After helping you remove these and convert them into power of virtue, my strength has also increased a little. I'm another small step closer to the Divine King's realm. It's really healed. Night Sorrow, I don't even know how to thank you." Lin Yunqi was very excited when she sensed that her body, which had been contaminated by the extraterrestrial demon, had been completely restored to its original state. She had even considered whether she should kneel and kowtow to Night Sorrow like the 13 Yunling eagles. "Senior, you don't have to be so polite. It's Night Sorrow's honor to be able to do something for you. Moreover, this was also something that Night Sorrow could do in passing. You don't have to take it to heart," Night Sorrow said politely. He felt that he was a person of virtue, so doing these things was in accordance with heaven's will. "No. I must remember this matter in my heart. Wait for me here." Lin Yunqi thanked him and returned to the ground. After returning, she handed Night Sorrow a palm-sized stone tablet and said, "This is the heaven and earth formation diagram. Keep it well. Consider it a gift from me to thank you. You're about to establish the deity realm, so you'll definitely need it." "Senior Yunqi, the heaven and earth formation diagram is too precious. Night Sorrow can't accept it." Night Sorrow took the stone tablet. When he heard Lin Yunqi mention the heaven and earth formation diagram, he immediately wanted to return it. "No matter how precious something is, it's not as important as my life. You, Night Sorrow, are my savior. Giving this to you makes me feel at ease." Lin Yunqi replied to Night Sorrow and continued, "Also, I'll pay you another reward for bringing me to the eternal supreme realm." "Senior Yunqi, you don't have to be so polite." Night Sorrow immediately refused. But Lin Yunqi shook her head and said, "I can't accept your kindness for no reason. Now, I'll go find a reward for you." After saying that, she didn't stop and flew into the sky. No one knew where she was going to find her opportunity. "Senior Yunqi." Night Sorrow wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Hee. This Lin Yunqi still doesn't like to be tied down. That's why she said that. Long Wushu said with a smile. She did this because she doesn't want to work for the immortal realm. "I see. Actually, I don't want to rope Senior Yunqi in," Night Sorrow explained. Hee. The most mysterious thing in the world is karma. It's normal that she doesn't want to owe you anything, Long Wushu said with a smile. "Now that she's left, we'd better hurry to Tianye's territory. I don't know if that bastard Luo Tian knows that you have the heaven and earth formation diagram. If he knows, he won't let it go. How should I say this? Opportunity and danger always go hand in hand. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. This heaven and earth formation diagram is very important to me. I really have to thank Senior Yunqi," Night Sorrow said and looked at Long Wushu. "If Senior Long needs it, Night Sorrow can share it with you. The heaven and earth formation diagram isn't a secret technique passed down in the family. There's no need to hide it. Whoever can learn it will learn it. I really want to learn it, but there's no need," Long Wushu replied to Night Sorrow. "In the current deity realm, even the sovereigns won't do anything to me. What's the use of me learning it?" His words were domineering, but also helpless. "Since that's the case, Night Sorrow won't force it. I'll share it with Senior Tianqing. This is an opportunity that belongs to us," Night Sorrow said to Long Wushu. Then he looked at Long Tianqing and said, "Senior Tianqing is an expert in formations. She might learn it before me." Chapter 2732. Long Tianqing said humbly, I've heard that if one wants to learn how to use the heaven and earth formation diagram, the most important thing is comprehension. I feel that you should be more talented than me. Haha. Although Tianqing is the daughter of the dragons, compared to you, the number one genius of the god realm, she is still slightly inferior. Long Wushu said with a smile. Senior Long, you flatter me. Night Sorrow doesn't deserve the title of the number one genius of the god realm. Hearing this, Yishang hurriedly said modestly. Haha. Why wouldn't I? It's just that your battle with the Divine King has been sealed. Apart from the people involved, not many people know about it. Otherwise, Night Sorrow's name would have shocked the entire god realm. Long Wushu shook his head and continued, however, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Although we are not afraid of strong winds, we have to be wary of the dark winds. Right now, you are only a monarch god and don't pose much of a threat to the sovereigns. Once you get close to or reach the level of the Divine King, some of the sovereigns will feel like they are sitting on pins and needles. Especially those who have some conflicts with you. Night Sorrow will be wary of the Dark Moon Sovereign and All Heaven's Sovereign. Night Sorrow thought for a while, and felt that he had the most intense conflicts with the Dark Moon Sovereign and All Heaven's Sovereign. Long Wushu shook his head again and said, I personally feel that the one you should be wary of is the Sovereign. The Sovereign? I don't have much contact with her. Night Sorrow was surprised by Long Wushu's words. He didn't have any interactions with Xuanhe. I always feel that that woman is very mysterious and scheming. Furthermore, according to some of the information that my dragon clan has obtained, she has thoroughly investigated you. Although I don't know why, you have to be careful of her. In this seat's opinion, she is a vicious viper. It's fine if you don't make a move, but once you make a move, your life will be in danger. Long Wushu said solemnly. Seeing how solemn Long Wushu was, Yishang nodded his head and said, Yishang will remember Senior Long's words. At the same time, he committed the name of the sovereign to memory. At this moment, Long Wushu added, if my information is not wrong, the number of geniuses that the sovereign has killed in the past few years is more than the number of geniuses that the other 6 sovereigns have killed. Although she didn't do anything to the deaths of these geniuses, I still feel that there's something fishy about it. Night Sorrow will be more careful. Senior Tianqing, when we reach Tianye's territory, we'll start researching it. Senior Long, if you're willing, we can study it together. Night Sorrow remembered Long Wushu's words. Then he indicated for Long Wushu and Long Tianqing to start moving together toward Tianye's territory. Tianyan Bao. Heaven and Earth Formation Diagram. This Night Sorrow is truly a fat sheep. I can't help but be tempted by the good things on him. After the 3 of them left, Luo Tian, who was hiding in the void, said with a greedy expression, preparing to establish an immortal domain? This is my chance. If I can't use my true body, then I'll just cultivate a clone. After saying that, he disappeared on the spot, preparing to go back and cultivate his clone. At this moment, Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing continued on their way. Long Wushu had already returned to Long Tianqing's spatial artifact. Because Tianye's territory was at the center of the divine world, it was connected to Heavenly Buddha's territory, Qingyin's territory, Xuanhe's territory, Darkmoon's territory, Seven Stars' territory, and Luo Tian's territory. Without anyone stopping them, they quickly arrived at Tianye's territory. After arriving at Tianyi Island, Night Sorrow immediately asked to see Tianyi, but he was in seclusion. Thus, he and Long Tianqing started studying the Heaven and Earth Array diagram. Long Wushu didn't have any intention of staying behind to study it. He immediately left and rushed back to the dragons. In the courtyard that Tianyi had arranged for them, Night Sorrow set up a concealment formation. Then, he took out the Heaven and Earth Array diagram and floated it in the air. The 2 of them started studying it together. This Heaven and Earth Array diagram is a shrunken version of the divine world. After studying it, Night Sorrow immediately felt that the Heaven and Earth Array diagram was very similar to the divine world. On a flat surface, it looked like it was divided into 7 parts by the 7 territories. The other parts were much smaller. After observing it for a while, Night Sorrow's soul completely entered it. The originally flat surface immediately turned into a 3-dimensional image. It was as if he had completely opened a door to a new world and wandered in. As he wandered in the world of the heaven and earth array diagram, Night Sorrow quickly discovered all kinds of different terrains. He also learned the heaven and earth spirit gathering array that Lin Yunxi had set up. So the heaven and earth spirit gathering array can give birth to countless peaceful little creatures. Senior Yunxi's heaven and earth spirit gathering array was a little off, so those demon spirits were born. After comprehending the spirit gathering array of heaven and earth, Yishang immediately understood that the spirit gathering array of heaven and earth was one of the easiest formations to comprehend among the formations of heaven and earth. After that, he comprehended another two types of heaven and earth spirit gathering array. One was called the heaven and earth slaughter array. After the array was activated, its power was extremely terrifying and could kill thousands of soldiers and horses. As for the other one, it was called the heaven and earth concealment array. It used the power of heaven and earth to set up a concealment array. It could even hide a large city. Night Sorrow didn't feel much about the heaven and earth slaughter array, but he was extremely happy about the heaven and earth concealment array. If he could find a suitable location to set up the array, then the people of the Night Moon Dynasty would be able to hide completely. They would be in an invincible position. After going through the heaven and earth concealment array in his mind, Night Sorrow sighed. Although the array is good, it's not easy to set it up. Looks like I need to gather the corresponding materials. Setting up the heaven and earth concealment array was different from the heaven and earth spirit gathering array. It required a lot of materials. After roughly studying the materials, Night Sorrow felt a headache coming on. There were at least 10 kinds of materials that he didn't have on hand to set up the array. Some of them were even difficult to find in the entire divine world. I wonder how many array formations Senior Tianqing has comprehended after observing the heaven and earth spirit gathering array for the first time. Although he wasn't sure how many array formations were in the heaven and earth array, Night Sorrow was sure that there were more than 3 types. He looked at Long Tianqing, who was still immersed in the heaven and earth array, and realized that she was resting with her eyes closed. She was obviously immersed in comprehension. Therefore, Night Sorrow didn't make a sound. He sat on the spot and reflected on the few array formations that he had just comprehended. Although there were only 3 types of array formations, they contained the great Tao of heaven and earth, as well as the power within, which allowed him to gain a lot. His comprehension of the terrain had improved. Night Sorrow, have you comprehended it? After about a month, Night Sorrow was still comprehending when Long Tianqing's voice suddenly sounded. She didn't want to interrupt Night Sorrow. Instead, she sensed that Night Sorrow's soul was no longer in the heaven and earth array. Therefore she spoke. I've comprehended a few array formations. What about Senior Tianqing? Night Sorrow replied. I've comprehended the heaven and earth spirit gathering array. It's the array formation that Lin Yunxi set up. However, I've comprehended a pure array formation without demon spirits. Chapter 2733. From Long Tianqing's tone, it seemed like she couldn't tell that the heaven and earth array diagram contained more than one type of array formation. I've comprehended 3 types of heaven and earth array diagrams, but I don't think I've fully comprehended them. Based on my judgment, the heaven and earth array diagrams aren't simple. There should be many types of great formations, Yishan said, voicing his judgment. Wandering around the heaven and earth array diagrams and comprehending the heaven and earth array diagrams was completely up to fate. Perhaps he would have an epiphany somewhere and learn one of the array formations. Although he had comprehended 3 types, he still felt that there was potential to be unearthed. It seems like this kind of thing really depends on talent. When Long Tianqing heard Night Sorrow's words, she sighed and asked, Night Sorrow, what did you see when you used your divine sense to examine the heaven and earth array diagrams? I saw a world that looked like the God world. Senior Tianqing, what about you? Night Sorrow replied with a question. I saw the area where the dragons lived. Long Tianqing pondered for a moment and guessed. Could it be that the heaven and earth array diagrams aren't just related to comprehension, but also to a person's heart? I have dragons in my heart, so I saw dragons. You have the entire God world in your heart, so you saw the entire God world. I think that's possible. Let's find another one. Night Sorrow replied to Long Tianqing. He called Jing Yun out of the clear sky pagoda and had her comprehend the heaven and earth array diagrams. Jing Yun saw Night Moon Peak and Endless Peak, where Night Moon had lived in the Night Moon Empire. She didn't comprehend any of the heaven and earth array diagrams. It seems like Senior Tianqing's conjecture is correct. After communicating with Jing Yun, Night Sorrow said with certainty. He didn't find anyone else to verify it because ruler Tianai had sent someone over to invite him to the ruler's residence. A divine lord led them to ruler Tianya's residence. Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing were brought to a training ground. Ruler Tianai was currently instructing some juniors. After giving them pointers for a while, he suddenly sighed and said, "It's good that you are so respectful towards me. However, only by having an invincible heart can you be invincible in the world. When the time comes when you can treat me as an ordinary person, you can become a genius like Night Sorrow." Night Sorrow? He was just lucky to have received the care of some big shots. Rumor has it that he relied entirely on external forces to fight the Divine King. If you give me a Dominator-ranked Divine Bow, I can also defeat the Divine King. As soon as Hegemon Tianai finished speaking, a male Divine Monarch replied unhappily. His name was Zhenye Yufeng and he was a hidden genius of the clan. He was ranked second on the Divine Lord ranking, and was usually arrogant. He was extremely dissatisfied with Night Sorrow. Haha, you're from a sovereign family, and your background is much higher than Night Sorrow's. Why didn't anyone give you a sovereign artifact? Upon hearing Zhenye Yufeng's words, Hegemon Tianai laughed and replied with a question. This is because we usually keep a low profile. If I were to roam the world like Night Sorrow, I might also be able to obtain a fortuitous encounter. As Zhenye Yufeng spoke, his tone weakened. He simply couldn't understand why some sovereigns in the divine world didn't have a sovereign artifact, but Night Sorrow had one. This didn't make sense at all. Divine Monarch Lu Yuan is ranked first on the Divine Lord ranking, a bit higher than you. Moreover, he roams the divine world and helps the world. Why hasn't he obtained a sovereign artifact? Hegemon Tianai continued to laugh. He didn't show any fierceness towards the juniors, and looked no different from an ordinary middle-aged man. I can't explain it clearly. It should be that Night Sorrow's luck is better. Otherwise, how could a low-level divine monarch like him fight the Divine King? Zhenye Yufeng couldn't help but mutter. Haha, since you think that's the case. It just so happens that Night Sorrow is about to arrive. Why don't the two of you spar? If you lose, you can focus on breaking through to the Divine King, and give up on becoming the #1 divine monarch in the divine world, before becoming a divine king. What do you think? Hegemon Tianai looked at Zhenye Yufeng, then made this suggestion. What? Night Sorrow is about to arrive. Just in time. He wants to fight. However, he isn't allowed to use a sovereign artifact. Uncle, what do you think? Zhenye Yufeng said, full of fighting spirit. Night Sorrow, what do you think? After Zhenye Yufeng finished speaking, Hegemon Tianai immediately looked at the arena's entrance. At this moment, Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing walked in. Spar? Sure. Night Sorrow had already heard the conversation between Hegemon Tianai and Zhenye Yufeng. He walked into the arena, glanced at Zhenye Yufeng, and realized that he was indeed a rare expert among divine monarchs. At the very least, he wouldn't lose to the average divine king. He felt that there was value in sparring, so he agreed. Upon seeing Night Sorrow appear, Zhenye Yufeng was stunned at first, but then he laughed loudly. Just in time. It seems like your strength isn't all there is to it. Zhenye Yufeng's aura was very strong, but he gave off the feeling that he was impetuous and unruly. After speaking, Night Sorrow understood Hegemon Tianya's intentions. He wanted to use him to teach the younger generation a lesson. He smiled and said, if everyone's strength could be seen, then the divine world wouldn't need to fight in the future. After all, victory and defeat can be seen with a single glance. What's the point of saying all this? Let's fight. I'll let you fight first. Zhenye Yufeng immediately retorted after being ridiculed. In fact, Night Sorrow was currently very famous among these Hegemon family clans. In the eyes of many young people from the Hegemon family clans, he had already become an imaginary enemy. You should go first. Although Night Sorrow was younger than Jinye Yufeng, who was a genius from the Hegemon family clans, Jinye Yufeng felt that Night Sorrow was a junior in his eyes. There was naturally no reason for him to make the first move. Alright. I'll let you experience the strength of the strongest divine monarch in the divine world. Jinye Yufeng shouted loudly. He took out a flexible sword from his spatial artifact and stabbed it toward Night Sorrow's chest. At the same time, his other hand took out a black chess piece from his spatial artifact and threw it into the air. This seemingly ordinary chess piece immediately became infinitely large in the air. After it became so large that it covered the sky, it suddenly pressed down. This move is not bad. You have some ability. After the black chess piece became large and pressed down, Night Sorrow immediately felt as if the sky was pressing down on him. He endured an almost irresistible force and barely managed to stand firm. This kind of terrifying pressure was much more terrifying than most of the Divine King's divine domains. At this moment, Jinye Yufeng, who was controlling his short sword, elegantly stabbed over from afar. Cheating. However, your performance isn't bad. That should be the best choice. Seeing Jinye Yufeng throw out the chess piece, Hegemon Tianai smiled. This chess piece had been personally refined by him. Although it was a king-level divine artifact, its power was astonishing. Chapter 2734. Hegemon Tianai was rather satisfied with this. Although Jinye Yufeng looked arrogant, he knew that no one was weak. Night Sorrow wouldn't be easy to deal with. Directly using his trump card was the right choice. Then let me test the power of your sword. Night Sorrow, who was being suppressed by the black chess piece, held up his left hand and withstood the pressure. He took out the Samsara halberd with his right hand and stabbed at Jinye Yufeng. With the help of the sea serpent's eye, Jinye Yufeng's graceful movement technique didn't have any effect. Hong! The two attacks collided together. What surprised Night Sorrow was that Jinye Yufeng was much stronger than he'd imagined. After exchanging blows, he didn't retreat much and finally landed steadily. Very good. You're much stronger than some Divine King chessmen. Night Sorrow immediately praised him. However, Jinye Yufeng's expression immediately turned ugly. Don't judge me like an elder. With that, he took out a red string from his spatial magical tool and tossed it into the air. This ordinary-looking red rope flew in the air for a while, and finally turned into a fire dragon dozens of feet long. It spat out blazing flames at Night Sorrow. At the same time, Jinye Yufeng used his sword art again and attacked. What a rich kid. Every time he attacks, he uses a divine artifact or secret treasure. Night Sorrow, who was still holding up the sky with one hand, immediately used the Samsara halberd's raging flames subduing demons. The flames from the raging flames subduing demons had absorbed the ancestral phoenix's spiritual feather, and were of a higher level than the flames from the red dragon. Night Sorrow, who was facing Jinye Yufeng's sword art again, placed the Samsara halberd between heaven and earth and let it block the black chess piece. He used his bare hands to attack Jinye Yufeng with the hand of heaven and earth. You don't have a king-grade divine artifact. Let's see what you have to block my glass rain sword. Jinye Yufeng laughed when he saw Night Sorrow use a king-grade divine artifact to block the black chess piece's pressure. However, he soon felt that something was wrong. It was as if Night Sorrow, who had unleashed the hand of cleaving heaven and earth, had transformed into the will of the god realm in an instant. He didn't even have the will to fight back. Bang! Jinye Yufeng was only distracted for a short moment before he was slapped away by Night Sorrow. However, Night Sorrow had only used 30% of his strength in this move, so it did not seriously injure him at all. This Night Sorrow is really strong. Even Big Brother Yufeng isn't his match. A female disciple at the Divine Lord Realm said in surprise when she saw Jinye Yufeng being sent flying. As the saying goes, knowing someone by their reputation is not as good as meeting them in person. Night Sorrow's display of strength had not only surprised her. The disciples of the other clans were also stunned. Before this, Jinye Yufeng had never been defeated by an opponent of the same level. He had only lost to Divine Lord Lu Yuan, who was a half-step Divine King. Humph. Hearing the disciples' discussion, Jinye Yufeng's expression became very ugly. After getting up, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, You're indeed very strong, but not to the extent where I can't defeat you. I still underestimated you just now. Next, I'll use my strongest strength. Pay attention." After saying that, Zhen Yi Yufeng immediately activated his bloodline completely under the state where he had already executed his secret art, directly raising his strength to a terrifying level. What a terrifying bloodline power! Night Sorrow, who was observing Zhen Yi Yufeng with the sea serpent's eye, was immediately somewhat stunned when he saw him activate his bloodline power. Something that could make him stunned was naturally extraordinary. After Zhen Yi Yufeng activated his bloodline power, his strength actually increased by a full 30 times or so. This was a completely heaven-defying increase. Before this, Night Sorrow had never even heard of it. Night Sorrow, you have to be careful. Yufeng's bloodline power can last for an hour. As long as you persist, he'll naturally be defeated. Seeing Zhen Yi Yufeng use his bloodline power, Divinity and I reminded him. Since it's a spar, there's no point in just dodging. Zhen Yi Yufeng's strength had already increased to a certain extent, but this also completely stimulated Night Sorrow's intense fighting spirit. After replying to Divinity and I, he used the Trayastrimsa battle mystic technique, increasing his strength by more than 10 times. Even after increasing his strength to such a level, Night Sorrow still didn't feel that he could suppress Zhen Yi Yufeng in terms of strength. From this, one could see how terrifying Zhen Yi Yufeng was in this state. Night Sorrow, I admire your courage and boldness, but when I used my bloodline power when I was a high-level Divine Lord, even the half-step Divine King Lu Yuan didn't dare to resist. Right now, I'm already a half-step Divine King. When I use it, you definitely won't be my match. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Zhen Yi Yufeng replied and took out a white chess piece from his spatial artifact, which floated above his head. With this white chess piece, Zhen Yi Yufeng's speed instantly increased by many times. Coupled with the fact that the black chess piece was affecting Night Sorrow, there was a huge difference in speed between the two. Take this. Since I have an absolute advantage in strength, I won't use my ultimate techniques against you. After being accelerated by the white chess piece, Zhen Yi Yufeng immediately slashed at Night Sorrow. This time, he didn't use any ultimate techniques, but the power of this attack was several times stronger than the previous one. Come at me. Night Sorrow, who had also increased his strength, roared and charged at Zhen Yi Yufeng. He didn't use the Samsara Halberd. He also didn't use the Divine Essence Dragon Locking Array, or the Azure Rock Soul Rending Roar. Instead, he used the strength of his body to meet the attack. Once again, he used the Hand of Genesis. He wants to use his body to take Yufeng's attack? Isn't this nonsense? The Divine King of North Star, who was beside Zhen Yi Yufeng, immediately changed his expression when he saw that Night Sorrow was prepared to take the attack head-on. Night Sorrow isn't a reckless person. As for Divinity and I, he watched with great interest, his gaze filled with admiration as he looked at Yishan. In his opinion, the current Night Sorrow was just like him before his rise. However, under everyone's attention, Zhen Yi Yufeng chose to withdraw his attack. He stood on the spot and said, "You should choose to use your divine artifact. I don't want to kill you directly. It wasn't easy for me to use my full strength, but you withdrew your attack. This makes me very embarrassed." Night Sorrow spread his hands and said, "Since I dared to take you head-on, it means I have enough confidence. Let's go again." Night Sorrow, you are my friend. I don't want to kill you. Zhen Yi Yufeng replied arrogantly. I don't understand why you have such thoughts. Night Sorrow sighed helplessly and said, "Since you don't believe I have the ability, I'll force you to use your strongest move." Chapter 2735. Three Roars Break Reincarnation. One move. Zhen Yi Yufeng, who was in the sealed space, immediately felt his head explode and his divine soul get damaged. This made Zhen Yi Yufeng choke. In his opinion, he had spared Night Sorrow's life, but Yi Yufeng was unwilling to let him go. After Night Sorrow's attack ended, Zhen Yi Yufeng immediately said with a cold face, "Since you are courting death, don't blame me." After speaking, he looked at Ruler Tianai and saw no reaction. He immediately roared, 3,000 killing sword. When his bloodline power was completely unleashed, he used his strongest killing move. When he lost to Divine Lord Fate, he hadn't mastered this move yet. Otherwise, it would have been hard to say who would have won. 3000 Killing Sword. Come at me. Facing this move, Knight Sorrow felt threatened by a Divine Lord for the first time since he became a Divine Lord. He didn't feel any danger or anything. He only felt the excitement of battle. He also adjusted himself to his best state. This time, he slapped the black chess piece away and grabbed the reincarnation halberd. He condensed the origin power in his body and shot out the taboo reincarnation spear. However, Knight Sorrow wasn't satisfied after shooting out the first spear. Instead, he continuously shot out 3 taboo reincarnation spears. The killing intent of Zhen Yi Yufeng's 3000 killing swords was extremely dense. 3000 sword lights floated around him, not one more, not one less. Only when Yi Yufeng attacked did these sword lights explode forth. At the same time, Zhen Yi Yufeng also moved, disappearing into the void in an instant. His move didn't just shoot out some sword lights. Good movement technique. Knight Sorrow, who had activated the Sea Serpent's Eye, could see Zhen Yi Yufeng approaching him in the void. After using the taboo reincarnation spear 3 times, he immediately attacked with the reincarnation halberd. Boom, boom, boom. The moment Knight Sorrow stood up, the 3 spear lights of the taboo reincarnation spear clashed with Zhen Yi Yufeng's 3000 killing sword. Zhen Yi Yufeng's sword was very sharp and elegant, but its power was limited. On the other hand, Knight Sorrow's spear had the aura of the Overlord spear. Although there were only 3 spear lights, each of them could block 1000 and break all of the enemy's sword lights. At the same time, Knight Sorrow was also facing Zhen Yi Yufeng amidst the light that filled the sky. Knight Sorrow, I didn't expect you to be able to see my trajectory. Zhen Yi Yufeng, who had obviously realized that he had been locked onto, laughed coldly and said, however, this is not a good thing for you. The reason for that is because the current me is something that even ordinary God Kings would have to avoid. I am no ordinary Divine King. With the reincarnation spear in hand, Knight Sorrow focused on speed, and did not execute any spear art. It collided with Zhen Yi Yufeng's sword. At this moment, Zhen Yi Yufeng had completely unleashed his strongest attack with the support of his anger. His strength was extremely terrifying. However, Knight Sorrow was not afraid at all. Buzz. The moment the two of them collided, the entire martial arts practice field suddenly shook. After a while, Zhen Yi Yufeng and Knight Sorrow were both pushed back by each other. They both retreated 1000 feet. After stabilizing his body, Zhen Yi Yufeng, who had fallen to the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood. As for Knight Sorrow, although he retreated further than Zhen Yi Yufeng, he was not injured at all. Furthermore, he stood steadily because his body was extremely strong. You are not injured? How is this possible? This is absolutely impossible. Seeing that Knight Sorrow was not injured at all, Zhen Yi Yufeng was immediately shocked. He did not believe that his attack could not injure a monarch god. Nothing is impossible in this world. Knight Sorrow replied and continued, this battle is over. Go back and recuperate. How did you do it? Zhen Yi Yufeng asked unwillingly. It's easy to understand. Your strength is slightly stronger than Knight Sorrow's after erupting, but the strength of his body is not something you can compare to. Divinity and I explained and then continued. In addition, Knight Sorrow's divine soul strength and other aspects have no weaknesses. After this battle, you should be aware of your own inadequacies, right? Your nephew is aware. Zhen Yi Yufeng replied with his head lowered. He was very unhappy with his defeat, but he was sincerely convinced. After a moment of silence, he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, Zhen Yi Yufeng is sincerely convinced that you can defeat me in a head-on battle. However, we will definitely have another battle in the future. Another battle? Knight Sorrow looked at Zhen Yi Yufeng and smiled, but he did not say anything. At that moment, Divinity and I said, Yufeng, I originally did not want to hurt you. However, there are some things that you need to understand. If you cannot defeat Knight Sorrow now, there will be even less of a chance in the future. He is only a low-level Divine Lord now, while you are already a half-step Divine King. It is clear who has more room for improvement. Zhen Yi Yufeng wanted to say something, but before he could, He spat out a mouthful of blood. He was extremely unwilling to accept that he would never have the chance to challenge Night Sorrow again in this life. Yufeng, this is what I want you to understand today. There is always someone better than you. Don't just focus on the title of number 1. That is just an empty title. Being restricted by the title of number 1 on the Divine Lord list, and not being able to become a Divine King, is an extremely laughable thing. No matter how strong a Divine Lord is, he cannot compare to a Divine King like you. Divinity and I said sincerely. Yes. Your nephew understands. Xinye Yufeng got down on one knee and bowed to Divinity and I. Then he stood up and bowed to Night Sorrow. Thank you, Brother Yi, for your guidance. Brother Yufeng, if you become a Divine King, Night Sorrow will definitely not be your match. Night Sorrow said. Yes. In the Divine World, those below hegemons are all ants. Uncle, your nephew understands. Your nephew was too stubborn in the past. Upon hearing this, Xinye Yufeng completely recovered. He cupped his fists and said, Everyone, the next time we meet, I will be Divine King Yufeng. Then he disappeared into the void. Night Sorrow, I have to thank you for freeing me from my stubbornness. After Xinye Yufeng left, Divinity and I invited Night Sorrow and the others to a tea house. Lord Hegemon, you are too kind. Night Sorrow replied with a smile. It's not that I'm being courteous, but stubbornness is the most terrifying thing in this era. Stubbornness can save people, kill people, and even destroy the entire Cloud Immortal continent or the entire Divine World. Divinity and I sighed. Lord Hegemon, what do you mean? Night Sorrow asked, puzzled. Divinity and I had mentioned Cloud Immortal continent. There had to be something going on. Cloud Immortal continent is currently in a critical situation. The number of Divine King, level extraterrestrial demons there far surpasses the number of Divine Kings there. The hegemons all have their own plans, so none of them have sent reinforcements. Divinity and I snorted coldly. They are waiting for me to set an example. Then Lord Hegemon, what do you mean? Chapter 2736. My original plan was that sending out the Divine King would definitely result in losses, so I would personally take action and wipe out these otherworldly demons. Divinity and I continued, but I suddenly thought of you. As long as you kill the otherworldly demons, you'll be able to obtain the power of good karma, which will allow you to rapidly increase your strength. That's why I didn't take action. I wanted to leave them to you. Lord Hegemon, how many Divine King are there among the otherworldly demons invading this time? If Divinity and I were to take action, even 1 or 2 hegemons wouldn't be a problem, much less a God King level otherworldly demon. Night Sorrow felt grateful for his words. If he could kill 10 or 20 Divine King level otherworldly demons, his strength would increase tremendously. I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely no less than 10. One of them is very strong, probably at the half-step hegemon level. If you hurry over, you must pay attention to him. Divinity and I immediately changed the topic. This matter isn't urgent. They can still hold on for now. If there are any changes, I'll immediately inform you. Let's first choose a location for your immortal domain. Thank you, Divinity and I. Night Sorrow immediately expressed his gratitude. There's no time like the present. Since you're already here, immediately follow me to the chosen location. Divinity and I stood up and continued. I know that you're not someone who can endure, so the territory I'm giving you won't be within my domain. It can only be at the edge. It's connected to the other hegemon territories. This way, you won't receive much protection, but it'll also be a good way to temper your faction. Lord Hegemon, you've thought things through thoroughly. Night Sorrow doesn't even know what to say. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Within the Clear Heaven Pagoda, his family members also felt that Divinity and I was very kind and praised him quite a bit. Ha! Night Sorrow. From this moment onward, you're going to be a domain lord. I hope that you'll be able to establish a faction that's not inferior to a hegemon territory. Thus from now on, you and I are of the same generation. In the future, you can just call me Brother T and I. Divinity and I said with a smile. Then took out a flying divine artifact. He brought Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing to the edge of his territory, where they began to fly along the borders of other hegemon territories. Then he said, "If you've taken a fancy to an area, just shout stop, and draw a circle around it. No one doesn't value something like territory, but I value you more." Night Sorrow doesn't know what to say. Yi Shang felt that it wasn't right for him to keep thanking him. He pondered for a moment and said, "In the future, I will give Brother Tianai a big gift." What hegemon Tianai was doing right now was a debt of gratitude. Night Sorrow was determined to wait until hegemon Tianai reached the hegemon level. If hegemon Tianai failed to become a paragon, he would think of a way to bring back some resources from the eternal paragon world to help him break through. Ha ha! Eyes hegemon Night. Hegemon Tianai began to laugh, causing everyone to feel as though they were bathing in a spring breeze. Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing both had a very good impression of him. Of course, Long Tianqing knew that this was only because hegemon Tianai greatly admired Night Sorrow. Otherwise, she wouldn't have received such treatment. "Brother Tianai, I'll choose somewhere nearby." They hadn't gone very far when Night Sorrow suddenly pointed in a direction. The area he was pointing at was very suitable for activating the heaven and earth formation. If they set up a domain lord's manor here, no one would be able to find it. "All right. Then I'll start drawing you a map." Night Sorrow spoke very quickly. Hegemon Tianai didn't hesitate and immediately drew a large area on the map. In terms of size, it was roughly a quarter of Tianya's territory. "Brother Tianai, this isn't good. Night Sorrow won't be able to accept it if you draw it like this." Now that Yi Shan had seen it clearly, he immediately refused. Tianya's painting was too big, far surpassing his imagination. He truly couldn't accept such a large area. "No matter. I'm giving it to you, so just accept it. However, this is a test for you. I want to see if you can defend such a large territory." Hegemon Tianai smiled. He didn't seem to feel any pain in drawing such a large area, nor did he care what others said. This was a boldness that most people didn't possess. Night Sorrow understands Brother Tianya's good intentions. Night Sorrow isn't afraid of being targeted by others, but I definitely can't accept such a large area. Night Sorrow replied, then said, "Night Sorrow can accept having this area. Night Sorrow will personally fight for an even larger territory." "Haha, you." Hegemon Tianai smiled and said, "All right. Half it is." After saying this, he completely drew the area on the map, then looked at Night Sorrow and said, "This area borders the Dark Moon Dominator's territory and the Seven-Star Dominator's territory. It's very close to the Cloud Immortal continent, so it'll be good for you to help protect Tianyan School." "All right. Then it's settled." When Night Sorrow heard Hegemon Tianya's words, he instantly felt that this was a good choice. Being closer to Tianyan School meant that he could help look after Tianyan School. "All right. I'll immediately announce this to the entire heavenly realm. Let everyone know that there's an immortal divine realm in the heavenly realm," Hegemon Tianai said. He was doing this to give some pressure. Otherwise, Night Sorrow's growth would be very slow if he was completely under his protection. "All right. Night Sorrow will do his best to protect the immortal divine realm," Night Sorrow said. He knew that it would be very difficult to protect such a large area. It was almost impossible. However, he had obtained it, so he had to do his best to fight for it. "In the future, unless a hegemon personally attacks you, I won't interfere. However, before that, choose a location for the Domain Master's Manor, and I'll set up a formation for you." Hegemon Tianai pointed at the large area beneath his feet. "I'll choose this place." Night Sorrow pointed at a mountain range in front of him. If he had enough materials, he could activate the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation here. That way, even a hegemon wouldn't be able to find the people from the Night Moon Dynasty. "All right." Hegemon Tianai nodded, and immediately set up a defensive formation around them. This formation was useless against a hegemon, but it wasn't something that the Divine King could break. This could be considered as him helping the Night Moon Dynasty get rid of their worries. After finishing the defensive spell formation, Hegemon Tianai said a few words, then left without hesitation. Night Sorrow and the people from the Night Moon Dynasty carefully set up the Domain Master's Manor in this area. A month later, The domain master's manor was set up. Yi Shang released everyone from the Clear Sky Pagoda and placed the King-grade Divine Pulse in the array of the domain chief's manor. Chapter 2737. Night Sorrow wasn't sure what was going on in his immortal dominion. He was going to bring people to patrol the area. Tianya's dominion was huge, so he couldn't possibly rely on his subordinates to manage all the areas. Especially the immortal dominion, which was located at the edge of Tianya's dominion. It was likely to be under the control of various factions. There might be a divine king there, or there might not be. He was going to make those who had submitted to Tianai continue to submit to the immortal dominion, and banish those who didn't. Brother, give me the map. Let's see what factions there are in the immortal dominion. Night Sorrow asked Xianjizi for the latest map of the factions in the immortal dominion. He discovered that the immortal dominion used to be under the control of a divine king named Bei Ning. 12 of the major cities were under the control of Bei Ning's subordinates. As for the other 10 cities and regions, they were under the control of other factions. Gather all our brothers who are divine monarchs and above. We'll make a trip to the divine king's residence. Tianai has already announced it to the world, but he hasn't said anything. This means that he doesn't care about the immortal dominion at all. We have to deal with this. As for the other smaller factions and cities, we can ignore them for now. Night Sorrow explained to Xianjizi after looking through the map. Xianjizi was the vice-captain of the god-slaying squad, and he could finally take up the post. However, he was still a little weak. He hadn't reached Divine Monarch yet. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, Xianjizi said, Captain, Bei Ning's Divine King is Tianya's subordinate after all. Shouldn't we talk to him before heading to the Divine King's residence? There's no need to talk to him. Tianai gave us this place without any special instructions. He just gave us free rein. Night Sorrow shook his head. Bei Ning's Divine King hasn't left the immortal dominion. He's obviously targeting us. There's no need to think too much about people like him. Just beat him into submission. Captain's analysis makes sense. It's intolerable to have someone like him beside us. Xianjizi had originally thought that Night Sorrow was being a little rash, but after hearing his words, he immediately reacted. Since he Gem and Tianai gave this place to us, we must let the entire God world know that this place is called the Deathless Divine Realm. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he went to see his wives and Wu Lingfei. He said to Jing Yin and Wu Lingfei, I know where the ancestral phoenix's nest is. Once the matter at hand is settled, I will take you there. Lord Ancestor Phoenix should be the ancestor of everyone in the Phoenix clan. However, it disappeared many years ago. How do you know about the ancestral phoenix's nest? When Wu Lingfei heard Night Sorrow's words, she immediately asked. She already knew that Night Sorrow knew about the ancestral phoenix nest, but she was curious about how Night Sorrow knew about it. I've seen Supreme Ancestor Phoenix. Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Wu Lingfei. Even in front of his wives, he didn't mention the eternal Supreme World. You've seen Supreme Ancestor Phoenix? You're saying he's still alive? Wu Lingfei was puzzled when she heard Night Sorrow's words. He's still alive, but he's no longer in the divine realm. He's in another realm, and his strength surpasses that of a ruler. Night Sorrow explained before continuing. My Samsara halberd has his aura. Is Supreme Ancestor Phoenix male or female? Wu Lingfei suddenly asked after a moment of silence. This seems to be a male. I'm not sure. Night Sorrow was stumped by Wu Lingfei's question. He felt that the other party might be a male, but after thinking about it carefully, he couldn't be sure. Then what's the problem? You should go about your business. Wu Lingfei continued. Why does Aunt Fei feel that something is off? Night Sorrow felt that Wu Lingfei's behavior was a little strange. However, by this time, Xianjizi had finished assembling the Divine Lords, and had also gathered the 10,000 high gods that the Dark Moon Ruler had sent to the immortal divine realm a few days ago. The Dark Moon Ruler had originally intended to give a portion of his territory to Night Sorrow, so that he could only choose the area that bordered the Dark Moon Ruler's territory. However, before he could say anything, Night Sorrow had chosen this area. This made him very happy, and he didn't hesitate to give away the promised 10,000 high gods. From now on, everyone is a member of the immortal divine realm. If there are any objections, you can withdraw immediately. I, Night Sorrow, will not pursue the matter. However, if you betray me, no one in the divine realm will be able to protect you. Night Sorrow stood in the middle of the many divine lords on the tower of the Domain Master's manor, looking down at the 10,000 high gods below. We are willing to follow Domain Master Night Sorrow to the death. These high gods weren't very willing to be given to Night Sorrow by the Dark Moon ruler. After all, Night Sorrow was only a divine lord. However, since they had already made the oath, there was no chance for them to go back on their word. They silently accepted their new status and shouted together, "Good. Our immortal divine realm has just been established. Compared to the other sovereign divine realms, it is very weak. However, our goal is to establish ourselves in the divine realm, and our status will not be inferior to any of the sovereign divine realms." Now that he said that, he was definitely extremely arrogant. However, one day, we will achieve this goal. After shouting, Night Sorrow flew into the sky and said, "Everyone, follow me to the Binaying Divine King's manor. We will demand an explanation." Yes. The 10,000 high gods on the ground shouted in unison. Every one of them had ordinary talents among the high gods. They were only able to become high gods through the use of medicinal pills. There was not much room for them to improve their strength. In the divine realm, they were pitiful existences. "Everyone follow me." After the high gods followed, Night Sorrow immediately shouted to Xianjizi, the 13 eagles of Yunling, and the others on the city wall. Immediately, the 13 eagles of Yunling, Mo Yuqian, and the others followed behind him. They rushed towards the Binaying Divine King's manor in an orderly manner. This wasn't Night Sorrow's style of doing things. However, he felt that only by doing things on a grand scale could he serve as an example to the others and solve the internal problems of the immortal divine realm smoothly. In about half a month's time, Yi Shang and his men arrived outside Binaying City in a grandiose manner. Binaying City was floating above a large lake. Above it was the sky and below it was the water. Together with the decorations of the clouds, it looked very beautiful. However, when Night Sorrow and the others arrived, they felt a strong murderous aura. "Yishang, you're making such a big scene. Are you here to attack the Divine King?" Yishang had just steadied himself when Divine Monarch Bei Ning, who was standing in the middle of the city, spoke. "Either submit or leave," Night Sorrow said coldly as he looked at the Divine King of Binaying. "Do you know that I am the subordinate of Sovereign Tianai? This is my territory," the Divine King of Binaying said unhappily. "Sovereign Tianai asked you to manage this territory, but it has been renamed to the Immortal Divine Realm. If you don't submit, you can leave." Chapter 2738. Divine Lord Relmant, what big tone you have. After being scolded by Night Sorrow, Bei Ning's Divine King exploded. He pointed at Night Sorrow and said, "If you hadn't caused trouble, this Divine King could have kept you alive for a while. Now that you're courting death, don't blame this Divine King. I'd like to see how you're going to kill me." Night Sorrow hovered in front of the army outside the city and looked at the Divine King of Bei Ning. Although he hadn't been in the Divine Realm for long, he had already encountered many people on the same level as the Divine King. Ha ha ha. This Divine King of Bei Ning has operated here for dozens of cycles. How can an outsider like you compare to my military strength? The Divine King of Bei Ning laughed wantonly. Since Lord Tian Yi didn't say anything, that means he's tacitly allowing me to continue occupying this place. Since Lord Tian Yi didn't say anything, he must want you to be my whetstone. Night Sorrow heard the Divine King of Bei Ning's words, and immediately understood what was going on. Lord Tianye's thoughts must be the same as his. The reason must be that there was something wrong with this Divine King of Bei Ning. Whetstone. Ha ha. It doesn't matter who the whetstone is. What's important is that your so-called immortal divine realm will soon be destroyed. After the Divine King of Bei Ning laughed, he said, "Left and right, gather the troops and head out of the city for battle. Today, Bei Ning will destroy this so-called immortal divine realm." "You want to destroy the immortal divine realm? Very well. I'll wait for you to leave the city." The divine king of Bei Ning's words didn't just enrage Night Sorrow, but also Jin Ye, the 13 Cloudridge Eagles, and other experts. All of them unleashed their fighting spirit and aura. Haha. Enjoy your last moments. The divine king of Bei Ning's face was filled with confidence. Not long after, the source of his confidence was revealed to everyone. There was an army of 120,000 high gods in the city. This army of 120,000 marched toward the city gates with an aura that was even more terrifying than the heavens itself. Their thick killing intent made one's heart palpitate. So many high gods, at least 100,000. We only have 10,000. How can we be a match? The high gods of the immortal dominion were alarmed by the sudden appearance of so many people. In their opinion, with 1 against 10, their side was bound to be defeated. What are you panicking? With the domain leader here, no matter how many people come, we won't be afraid. The divine king of Bei Ning scolded the immortal divine king of Bei. Divine King Bei Ning sneered and mocked. What? The battle hasn't even started yet, and you're already scared out of your wits by the army of my northern condensation divine region? Soldiers of the immortal domain, if you are afraid, you may surrender now. I, the North congealing godly king, will take you in regardless of the past. I think you still need some time to reorganize your army. Night Sorrow, who was standing at the front of the army, immediately activated the Treastrimsa Heaven's Battle Mystic Art, and issued a challenge to God King Northern Convergence. You're just a divine sovereign. What right do you have to challenge the divine king? Standing on the city wall, God King Bei Ning sneered and rejected in a very arrogant manner. He knew that Night Sorrow had a sovereign artifact and would be difficult to deal with. He was afraid that he would be captured before the battle even began. Just say you don't dare. Since you don't dare, then I'll attack. The immortal divine realm's morale was weak. Night Sorrow and the divine king of Bei Ning roared and took out the Tianyun bow and Skycloud arrow. They shot an arrow at the city gates. Boom. The first Sky Cloud arrow fiercely bombarded the array outside the city gate. The Great City Barrier array shook violently, but it did not directly break through its defenses. Haha. You want to use a sovereign artifact to break through the defenses? You're dreaming. This God King formation had been set up by Hegemon Tianai in the past. It's not something a divine sovereign ant like you can break through. The divine king of Bei Ning laughed when he saw that Night Sorrow's arrow hadn't broken through the formation, and the city gates were unharmed. At the same time, his 2 deputies were leading the army toward the city gates. They would arrive soon. You're right. I want to use this method to boost the morale of the army. Night Sorrow replied coldly to the divine king of Bei Ning's mockery. He reached out and summoned the Skycloud arrow back to him. At the same time he roared, I offer my blood to the divine bow. Today, the immortal divine realm will defeat the northern divine realm. He then poured his blood into the Tianyun bow. After absorbing Night Sorrow's blood, the Tianyun bow immediately transformed. It shone with a dazzling light and an extremely powerful aura. So this is a sovereign artifact. If the domain lord has a sovereign artifact, does that mean he'll become a sovereign in the future? Tianyun Bao's aura was so vast that it shocked the immortal divine realm's high gods. They had been given to Night Sorrow by the Dark Moon ruler, so they knew that even the Dark Moon ruler didn't have an undamaged sovereign artifact. When they saw the sovereign artifact in Night Sorrow's hand, their spirits were lifted. Insignificant tricks. In the face of absolute power, all tricks are useless. Your immortal divine realm will be destroyed. The divine king of Bei Ning still didn't take the immortal divine realm's forces seriously. At the same time he shouted into the void, left and right. Why are you dragging this out? Hurry up and bring your men over. Reporting to the divine king. Our North congealing army has too many soldiers, more than 10 times their number. Therefore we will need more time. One of the deputies in the void replied. You'll understand in a moment. Whatever the high gods say, they're just symbols. Yishang laughed coldly. Then he knocked an arrow on his bow and shot another Sky Cloud arrow. The moment the Sky Cloud arrow was shot, Night Sorrow shouted, Charge in with me. Kill. Xian Jizi led the charge. The 13 Yunling Eagles, Mo Yuqian and the other puppets, the high gods of Xiao Tianquan's family, and Geng Chen from the god-slaying squad all followed suit. The 10,000 high gods of the immortal divine realm followed suit. Kill! 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 Their loud roars reverberated between heaven and earth, and their aura was shocking. Boom! At this moment, the sky cloud arrow hit the defensive formation again and broke through it. The arrow landed on the city gate beneath the divine king of Beining's feet and shattered it. Bastard! Everyone, charge in with me! The moment the city gate was shattered, the divine king of Beining's face turned as red as a pig's liver. As he gave the order, the 10 Sir Gods beside him took out their own divine weapons from their space Dharma instruments. Alright. The immortal divine realm's army roared in excitement. At the same time they followed Night Sorrow and charged forward. You're courting death. Today, all of you will die here. The divine king of Beining's eyes darkened when he saw the reaction of Night Sorrow and the others. Chapter 2739. Noticing the divine king's movement, Night Sorrow immediately activated the sea serpent's eye and looked in that direction. Passing through the clouds, he saw an old man in the sky. Judging from his aura, it was the divine king. Who's that? Yi Shang pointed in the direction of the void and transmitted his voice to Jin Ye. I can't see anyone there. Jin Ye replied honestly. He didn't have the sea serpent's eye, and his divine sense couldn't reach that far. Then you don't need to join the battle. Stay at the back and guard against that person's sneak attack. Night Sorrow instructed Jin Ye, before leading his army to the city gates. The Northern Condensation Divine Realm's army of 120,000 was already charging toward the Immortal Divine Realm's army. Kill. Annihilate the Immortal Dominion's brats. On the other side, the Divine King, whom Night Sorrow had been guarding against, slowly landed at the back of the Immortal Dominion's army. Using a spatial artifact, he summoned an army of 100,000 to surround the Immortal Dominion's army. Ha! Night Sorrow! Let's see how your 10,000 brats will fare against our 220,000 strong army. The old man who'd summoned his army shouted with a ferocious glint in his eyes. Who are you? The Immortal Dominion's army was still some distance away from the Immortal Dominion's army. This old man is the steward of the Dark Moon Dominion's residence. I'm here on orders from the Lord to deal with a brat like you. The steward of the Dark Moon Dominion's residence didn't have a name. This divine king and the steward will attack from both sides. Night Sorrow, let's see if you can grow wings and fly away today. The divine king of North Condensation's smile widened when the steward appeared with his army. Night Sorrow's 10,000 Immortal Dominion's army began to panic again. 10,000 against 220,000. This was an overwhelming advantage in numbers. It was only natural that they were afraid. Don't panic. No matter how many immortals they have, it won't affect the outcome of the battle. Seeing that his side's formation was in chaos, Yi Shan immediately roared. He used some of the green rock soul-rending roars moves to intimidate the Immortal Dominion. But ruler, we're not only outnumbered, we're outnumbered by the steward's army. The leader of the Immortal Dominion's eyes immediately responded to Night Sorrow's direction. The Dark Moon Dominion's army was the Dominion's army's army was the weakest. The steward's army's army was the Dark Moon Dominion's army? No matter. Leave the army. S's army's army. Yi Shang replied nonchalantly, and then prepared to attack the front and back armies. Divine Monarch Bei Ning and the steward laughed when they heard Yi Shang's words. God. The Immortals. S's Dominion. S residences as gods as SSSSS. S dominions, haha, that's right. With this divine king and the divine king here, you won't be able to cause any trouble. A cruel smile appeared on the steward's face. Yi Shang, however, remained unmoved. Beining. I understand now. Dominion T and I already knew that you were in cahoots with the Dark Moon Dominion, and was prepared to abandon you. I originally wanted to show mercy, but it seems like there's no need for that now. Show mercy? No need. This divine king wants to see how you're not going to show mercy. Divine King Beining laughed loudly. At the same time, the two armies were getting closer and closer. Seeing the situation, Xian Jizi frantically transmitted to Night Sorrow. Captain, what should we do? The difference in numbers is too big. We're hard to deal with. Don't panic. Knight Sorrow's reply was calm. He then roared. Trust me, we can break through to 220,000. Kill them. Charge. Follow me. Xianjizi knew Yishang well and knew that he never lied, so he immediately shouted. Brothers, kill them. We're going to die anyway. Even if we die, we'll take one with us. If we can kill two, we'll make a profit. The leader of the exalted gods' army also shouted. After all, they had all sworn an oath to the heavens, and could not choose to retreat at the critical moment. Kill them. Think about how you were abandoned by the Dark Moon Dominion. Don't you have any motivation? Knight Sorrow hovered in the air and roared. Yes. Kill. Why should we be looked down upon? That's right. Even if we die, we must at least take out one of the Dark Moon Dominion's army. After Knight Sorrow spoke, the exalted gods' army immediately roared. Very good. But even if you want to die in battle, you won't get the chance. Seeing the determination of the exalted gods' army, Knight Sorrow nodded in satisfaction and gathered his virtuous energy. He shouted, Ice Seal. In the blink of an eye, the Dark Moon Dominion's and North Condensation's armies were all frozen. 220,000 soldiers were frozen in place the moment they approached the exalted gods' army. What's going on? What sorcery is this? Not even a Dominion can do this. The Divine King of North Condensation and the Dark Moon Dominion's steward were dumbfounded at the sight. This was something they'd never imagined even in their wildest dreams. After taking a good look and confirming that it wasn't an illusion, the two of them exchanged a look and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Knight Sorrow hadn't even done anything. He'd only shouted 2 words, and all he'd done was freeze all 220,000 soldiers. It was an unheard of technique. In fact, it wasn't just the Divine King of North Condensation and the steward who were shocked. The 30 or so divine sovereigns behind them were all flabbergasted. Knight Sorrow's technique wasn't something even a Dominion could do. It even felt like the power of the heavens and earth. It was mysterious to an unimaginable degree. Your Excellency, what technique is this? Isn't it a little too terrifying? The exalted gods of the immortal Dominion were stunned when they saw all 220,000 frozen exalted gods. Even Xianjizi and the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles were flabbergasted. What are you standing there for? The Divine King of North Condensation has joined forces with the Dark Moon Dominion and betrayed Dominion Tianyi. Today, the immortal Dominion will clean up the traitor in Tianyi's place. Knight Sorrow didn't bother to explain his absolute command. He simply gave the order. It was one of his special abilities to enforce the law with words. No one with a lower cultivation than him could escape his wrath. As long as he said the word, he could freeze them or summon lightning tribulation. He could even kill them all if he wanted. But to kill all 220,000 exalted gods was bound to be punished by the heavens. Therefore, Knight Sorrow chose to freeze them all. As for the immortal Dominion's exalted gods, they were completely out of his control. They immediately charged. Chapter 2740. Quick. Let's attack the immortal divine realm's exalted gods together. Otherwise, our 220,000 exalted gods will be wiped out. Seeing the situation before her eyes, Divine King Northern Coagulation was completely dumbfounded. He and the butler had concocted a scheme to lure Knight Sorrow into the trap. They did not expect Knight Sorrow to use such an invincible method. This was simply heaven-defying. Kill. All divine lords, follow me to kill Knight Sorrow. He's a monster. The butler could no longer remain calm. Without waiting for Divine King Bei Ning's order, he led his divine lords and charged at Night Moon's group. Brother Jin Ye, you deal with the butler. The rest of you deal with the divine lords. Leave Bei Ning Divine King to me. Knight Sorrow used his divine soul to check on the butler, and found that his aura was stronger than Jin Ye's. However, the gap between the two was not big. Jin Ye should be able to hold on for a while. As long as he could kill Divine King Bei Ning in a short period of time, he would be able to lend a helping hand. As for the divine lords, Night Sorrow was not worried at all with the 13 eagles of Yunling and Mo Yuqian around. Night Sorrow, you little brat, come and die. While Night Sorrow and Jinya were talking, Divine King Bei Ning and the butler attacked Night Sorrow together. Your opponent is me. Jinya immediately stood in front of the butler, preventing them from fighting 2 against 1. He glanced at Jinya's butler and smiled coldly. You are not the Divine King's match. You are courting death if you stop me. CKU. The Divine King? Who isn't the Divine King? Stop pretending. Jinya was a mid-level Divine King. He was very strong. However, ever since he left the ancient Golden Crow realm, he had lost almost every battle. After scolding the butler, he took out the divine artifact furnace and blasted a flame at the butler. It's just a small trick. In the face of Jinya's attack, the butler smiled indifferently and swung his sleeve out. It directly extinguished Jinya's flames. This robe was prepared by Dark Moon for him to use to kill Night Sorrow. It was a half-step Dominator rank, not something a normal king-ranked Divine King could compare to. Bastard. Am I, Jinya, going to lose again today? No. I refuse to accept this. Jinya, who had recognized the butler's extraordinary robes with a single glance, was rather displeased. But even if he was unhappy, he was still weaker than the butler in the first place. His divine weapon was not as sharp as the butler's, so he could only passively take the beating. He was so aggrieved that he wanted to die. Haha. What? Unreconciled? This Divine King's divine weapon is better than yours. It can suppress you. Do you have any ideas? The steward continued to unleash his half-step sovereign artifact, suppressing Jinya to the point where he couldn't even fight back. He laughed wantonly. When Brother Night Sorrow kills Bei Ning Divine King, you'll get it. Jinya replied coldly. However, he was a little doubtful. He wasn't sure how long he could last. You'd better think about whether you can last until then. Haha. Die. The butler, who had gained the upper hand by relying on the divine weapon's power, laughed arrogantly and prepared to unleash the robe's related ultimate technique. Not good. Jinya, who was already weaker than his opponent, immediately had a bad feeling when he saw the butler preparing to unleash his ultimate technique. He had a premonition that he wouldn't be able to withstand this attack. At this moment, Night Sorrow suddenly transmitted, Brother Jinya, take the bow. Take the bow. Jinya was a little confused. Night Sorrow immediately continued. Didn't he think his divine weapon was powerful? Take the Tianyun bow and deal with him. Night Sorrow's original plan was to rely on Tianyun bow to quickly get rid of Bei Ning Divine King. However, he realized that the other party wasn't so easy to deal with. Even with Tianyun bao's help, he wouldn't be able to kill him in a short time. Seeing that Jinya couldn't hold on so quickly, he immediately changed his plan. He directly handed the Tianyun bow and the heavenly cloud arrow to Jinya, and let him try to kill the butler. Good. Jinya won't disappoint. After taking the Tianyun bow, a cruel smile appeared on Jinya's originally sullen face. He glared fiercely at the butler and said, Your divine weapon is powerful, isn't it? Come on. Let's see if it's as powerful as a sovereign divine weapon. The instant the butler attacked, he drew the bow and shot 3 heavenly cloud arrows in succession. Bastard. Even lending out a sovereign divine weapon, this Night Sorrow. The Dark Moon ruler's butler originally wanted to complain, but he immediately shut his mouth. The heavenly cloud arrows that Jinya shot were too powerful. The first arrow had already shattered his sleeve. The second and third arrows seemed to have come alive and chased after him. Haha. You want to be awesome? You want to show off? It's just a high-grade divine weapon. After shooting 3 heavenly cloud arrows in succession, although Jinya was suffering from the recoil, he felt indescribably carefree. On the other side, Bei Ning Divine King saw that Night Sorrow had actually lent the sovereign divine weapon Tianyun Bao to Jinya and immediately mocked. A mere Divine King dares to lend a sovereign divine weapon to the Divine King? You are courting death. You should speak with your strength. After all, you don't have my ability if you rely on your mouth. Night Sorrow, who had frozen the army of 220,000 exalted gods, mocked back. Bei Ning Divine King was indeed not weak, but he was confident that he could protect himself without using Tianyun Bao. Strength. The Divine King can crush you with one hand. Prepare to die. Bei Ning Divine King scanned the battlefield and saw that the battle between the Divine King and the Divine Lords was in a stalemate. The exalted gods on both sides were completely frozen and were being slaughtered by the Immortal Realm's army. If he couldn't suppress Yishang quickly, then the 120,000 troops under his command would be wiped out very quickly. With a loud roar, God King Northern Coagulation took out an extremely simple and unadorned jar from her spatial artifact. The jar was slightly damaged and had no lid. However, the moment he took it out, Night Sorrow sensed danger. Night Sorrow opened his sea serpent's eye and exclaimed, "It's a damaged sovereign divine weapon. Although it's severely damaged, it can definitely crush a king-grade divine weapon. Looks like you have some eyesight. However, just eyesight alone is not enough. Prepare to die. You can't imagine how powerful a sovereign divine weapon is." Bei Ning Divine King roared and threw the broken jar at Night Sorrow. The broken and lidless jar did not emit any light or any terrifying aura after it was thrown. However, Night Sorrow felt that it was extremely dangerous. What kind of attack is this jar going to unleash? Even after opening his sea serpent's eye, Night Sorrow still could not see any clues about the jar. Although it was a damaged sovereign divine weapon, it was completely different from a king-grade divine weapon. Night Sorrow only realized how difficult it was for his opponent to face Tianyin Bao. Hehe. Prepare to die. If I didn't want to kill you immediately, I wouldn't have. The Divine King will not use his trump card. Chapter 2741. The most important function of this seemingly ordinary and even damaged earthen jar was to confuse a cultivator's mind. It could make a cultivator lose themselves in an instant. When the earthen jar approached Night Sorrow, it immediately released a layer of gray light. The black light didn't give off a special feeling, but when it enveloped Night Sorrow, he suddenly felt as if his divine soul was being separated from his body and entered into another world. He couldn't resist the huge suction force at all. By the time he reacted, one of Night Sorrow's divine souls had already entered a dark and bloody world of slaughter. The moment he entered this world, he began a slaughter that left others breathless. There were constantly Divine Lord level and even God King level wraiths that attacked him. Even though Night Sorrow's divine soul was very strong, it was still very difficult to resist. Not long after, he started to get injured. No, this place is too strange. There are probably thousands of Divine Monarch and Divine King level wraiths. It's not something I can resist. From the looks of it, the only way is to use another Divine Ocean to kill the Divine King outside. Control the earthen jar and let me out. Night Sorrow's divine soul, which had been sucked into the dark and bloody world, struggled with all his might and realized the seriousness of the matter. He judged that the wraiths inside should have been sucked in by the black light of the earthen jar. This earthen jar was once a sovereign-level divine artifact. The wraiths inside might be close to the sovereign level. He was in great danger. Ha ha ha. None of the divine souls of cultivators who have been sucked into this divine artifact can come out. I've already killed the butler, Night Sorrow. How are things on your side? After confirming that Night Sorrow's divine soul had been sucked into the earthen jar, the Divine King of North Ning laughed and asked, "Can't you see how I'm doing?" At this moment, the butler was in a very sorry state. Under the pursuit of the heavenly cloud arrow, he was already covered in wounds. With Tianyin Bao's help, Jin Ye was like a god helping him. He had already completely suppressed the butler. If the steward of the Dark Moon ruler continued to be suppressed like this, it wouldn't be long before he was killed. When he heard the Divine King of Bining's words, he snapped, "Quick attack! Help me deal with him. A complete sovereign artifact is simply too terrifying." Of course I know how terrifying a sovereign artifact is. Just like my jar, as long as you suck it in and don't break the jar, you will never be able to come out. The Divine King of North Ning smiled and casually threw a palm strike at the motionless Night Sorrow. He felt that his soul had been sucked away and would definitely be killed by this palm strike. At the same time, he threw the jar in Jin Ye's direction without even looking. Use the heavenly cloud arrow to shoot at this pot. Dodging won't work. Night Sorrow, whose divine soul had already taken control of his body, controlled the heavenly samsara halberd to resist the attack of Bei Ning's divine king and transmitted a message to Jin Nye. Just like the flying jar, he used the divine essence dragon locking spell. Jin Nye was stunned when he heard Night Sorrow's voice transmission. When he came to his senses, he immediately replied, "All right. I will attack with all my might." At the same time, he immediately drew his bow and shot at the jar. The divine essence dragon locking spell had a slight effect on the jar and allowed the heavenly cloud arrow to hit its target. The heavenly cloud arrow bombarded the jar, causing the cracks on the jar to become even more terrifying. It was as if the jar would shatter at any time. "Bastard! You were sucked in by the jar, and you still managed to come out. How did you do it?" Night Sorrow suddenly moved and blocked his attack. He also helped Jin Nye to restrain the jar temporarily. This made the Divine King of North Ning extremely surprised and furious. The Divine King of North Ning could feel that the jar was damaged, and it made his heart ache. However, he could not figure out how Night Sorrow did it. He did not expect Night Sorrow to have two divine seas. "You don't need to know how I did it. Die." Night Sorrow roared and once again activated the Trayastrimsa battle mystic technique to increase his strength. At the same time, he flew to Jin Nye's side and took back the Tianyun Bao and madly poured his blood into it. After absorbing a large amount of blood, the Tianyun Bao trembled and was completely activated. After being activated, the Tianyun Bao instantly bloomed with light that spread to the horizon. Almost everyone present could not open their eyes. Not good. Night Sorrow is going all out and activating the sovereign artifact. It is very difficult for us to resist an activated sovereign artifact. What should we do? The butler of the Dark Moon ruler felt the terrifying aura of the Tianyun Bao after being activated, and immediately transmitted his voice to the Divine King of North Ning. When Jin Nye had controlled the Tianyun Bao, he had felt a lot of pressure, and was very uncomfortable. Now that the Tianyun Bao had been activated and the terrifying aura spread to the horizon, he immediately panicked. What else can we do? Let's take out our trump cards and fight. If the two of us escape, the 200,000 high gods here will definitely be slaughtered. After suffering such great losses, will the Dark Moon ruler let us go? The Divine King of North Ning sighed in response. Then he asked curiously, "Did the Lord Ruler not give you any powerful treasures?" He did have a king-class talisman that is infinitely close to the Lord Ruler's strength. After the butler finished, he said viciously, "The Lord Ruler personally refined this talisman. However, he limited its level to king class. He told me to use it to kill Night Sorrow. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and attack." The Divine King of North Ning immediately said angrily. In truth, although he was a subordinate of Lord Tianai, he had long been in cahoots with the Dark Moon ruler. "This is Night Sorrow's talisman. We can't use it immediately. The Tianyun Bao in his hand has already been activated. Even if I activate the talisman, it won't hurt him." The butler replied, then continued, "Why don't you sacrifice that earthen jar and have it self-destruct to pose a threat to him? In a situation where he can't even fend for himself, I'll throw out the talisman. What do you think? Self-destructing the earthen jar? Don't even think about it. That's something this Divine King uses to save his life." The Divine King of North Ning immediately rejected this suggestion. A damaged sovereign artifact was still a sovereign artifact. No Divine King would be willing to use it to self-destruct. Sigh. That's true. If it were me, I wouldn't be willing to self-destruct either. However, you should be willing to part with a king-class artifact, right? As the steward continued to ask questions, he took out a king-grade flying sword from his spatial Dharma artifact and shot it towards Night Sorrow and the heavenly cloud bow, causing them to self-destruct. Seeing the butler's reaction, the Divine King of North Ning nodded and said, "Of course this Divine King is willing to part with an ordinary king-class artifact." As he replied, he threw out two king-class artifacts in succession, causing them to self-destruct. At this moment, Night Sorrow hadn't attacked when Tianyun Bao had activated the talisman. Instead, he stood there in a daze. Even when the king-class artifacts self-destructed, he didn't react at all. It was very strange. Chapter 2742. Lord Night Sorrow, get out of the way. The leader of the 13 Eagles of Cloud Ridge reminded him. The others were in a similar state. None of them understood why Night Sorrow had suddenly stopped moving. He hadn't reacted to the explosion at all. Mo Yuqian even wanted to rely on his own explosion to block Night Sorrow's attack, but he was too far away and couldn't make it in time. At this point, Tian Yunbao's light had completely vanished. Ah, steward, what are you waiting for? Didn't you tell me to explode my divine artifact, so that you could find an opportunity like this? Now that he's not moving at all, why don't you use the talisman made by the Dark Moon ruler? Seeing Night Sorrow not moving, the Divine King of North Ning hurriedly shouted at the steward. Why do I feel like there's something fishy going on? The steward of the Dark Moon ruler was a little hesitant. He didn't think Night Sorrow was a rash person. What's fishy? Blast him to pieces and end everything. Only by killing Night Sorrow can we save the rest of the high gods. Hurry up. The Divine King of North Ning urged. The way he saw it, if he delayed dealing with Night Sorrow, hundreds or even thousands of his high gods would die. Forget it. Let's do it. The steward, who had originally wanted to wait and see, snorted coldly. As long as we deal with him, there won't be any problems. As he spoke, he took out the powerful talisman the Dark Moon ruler had given him and threw it at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, hurry up and dodge. Everyone from the immortal domain shouted anxiously at the sight before them. Haha, dodge. It's too late. Night Sorrow is dead for sure. Seeing the talisman the Dark Moon ruler had made fly to Night Sorrow's side, the steward laughed heartily. As long as we kill everyone here, Tia and I won't know. Gem and Tia and I wouldn't know. Let's work together to get rid of Night Sorrow. The Divine King of Bei Ning smiled coldly and said, I will immediately activate the formation and seal the space. Do not let anyone escape. How could Gem and Tia and I not know? If he didn't even know what was happening right under his nose, he wouldn't be the #1 expert in the God realm. Hearing Bai Ning's Divine King's words, the butler smiled. His mission was to help the Dark Moon ruler kill Night Sorrow and capture Tianyun Bao. As for the Divine King of Bai Ning, he didn't care at all. What's going on? The butler, who had been mocking Bai Ning's Divine King in his heart, suddenly noticed that the talisman he had activated did not explode when it approached Night Sorrow. He immediately looked over nervously. Seeing this, the butler's expression immediately changed. At this moment, Yishang had already opened his eyes. He controlled the heavenly cloud bow to suppress the talisman flying towards him. After the talisman was suppressed, a smile appeared on Night Sorrow's face. Then he tossed it towards the butler. This talisman was personally made by the Dark Moon ruler. Seeing the talisman flying towards him, he immediately used his movement technique to dodge. You want to run? Didn't you want to use this talisman to kill me? Now have a taste of its power. Yi Shan, who had recovered, immediately used the virtuous dragon locking formation on the housekeeper when he saw that the housekeeper was trying to dodge. Being bound by the virtuous dragon locking formation, the butler, who had originally wanted to dodge, immediately panicked. By the time he reacted and began to break the formation, the talisman had already exploded in the sealed space. Wang! After a muffled explosion, the already injured housekeeper was left with only half a life from the explosion of the divine talisman. Yishang seized the opportunity and drew his bow. He used the heavenly cloud arrow to pierce through his dantian. Then he crushed his spirit sea. Not good. If I, the Divine King, don't run, I will definitely die. Seeing that the butler was instantly killed by Night Sorrow, the Divine King of North Ning immediately panicked. He activated a secret technique to raise his strength to the maximum, and used his movement technique to escape. Seeing that he was escaping, Night Sorrow immediately grabbed 5 heavenly cloud arrows. He shouted, Heavenly Cloud 5 elemental arrows. Then he shot the 5 heavenly cloud arrows together. The 5 heavenly cloud arrows transformed into the energy of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth and shot towards the Divine King of North Ning. Not good. This is the origin power of a sovereign. Tianyun Bao has indeed been completely activated. The Divine King of North Ning, who was escaping, felt the energy of the 5 heavenly cloud arrows behind him, and was immediately scared out of his wits. At this moment he looked at a corner of the void and shouted, "Lord Dark Moon Ruler, save me. North Ning swears to be loyal to you." "Steal from Lord Tianai? I don't dare to do such a thing. You can go in peace." The Dark Moon Ruler, who was hidden in the void, snorted coldly. When the butler died, he didn't even save him, let alone the Divine King of North Ning. "I, North Ning, am working for you, but you don't save me." The Divine King of North Ning was disheartened by the Dark Moon Ruler's cold rejection. At this moment, the 5 heavenly cloud arrows bombarded his body one after another, causing him to lose the ability to fight. Night Sorrow immediately rose into the air and chased after him to kill him. Then he looked at the void and said, "Lord Dark Moon, next time send a stronger Divine King." Umph. The Divine King of Dark Moon in the void snorted coldly after losing the butler and 120,000 high gods. He didn't say anything and chose to leave immediately. After the Dark Moon Ruler left, Night Sorrow looked at the divine lords and high gods who were still fighting and said, "Everyone stop." "Yes." After Night Sorrow spoke, everyone from the immortal dominion stopped. The divine lords who followed the Divine King of North Ning and the butler knew that the 2 divine kings on their side had been killed, so they didn't dare to make a move. Almost all of them were in a state of submission. At the same time, Night Sorrow spoke and unfroze all the frozen high gods. After the remaining high gods recovered, they looked around blankly, not understanding what had just happened. Looking at them, Night Sorrow said, "I am Night Sorrow. The Divine King of North Ning and the butler have both been killed. This is something you need to know. Also, you need to make a choice. Join the Immortal Dominion, or return to the Dominion of Tianyi, or the Dark Moon Dominion." The 2 divine kings really died in battle? Some of the high gods asked incredulously. "They have indeed been killed by Domain Lord Night Sorrow. A divine lord under the Divine King of North Ning sighed helplessly. "That's true." Upon hearing this, all the high gods present looked at Yi Shang in astonishment. Night Sorrow hovered in the void with the Tianyun bow in his hand. To them, he was as dazzling as the sun in the sky. "What do we do? Where should we go?" Chapter 2743. The steward's subordinates were glad that Night Sorrow didn't kill them and gave them a choice. They were worried that Night Sorrow would kill them if they chose to return to the Dark Moon Dominion. After all, they had sworn an oath to serve the Dark Moon Dominion for life. Divine King Bei Ning's subordinates didn't hesitate. They all bowed to Night Sorrow and said, "We are willing to serve the Immortal Dominion." In fact, they had no other choice. Every one of them had sworn an oath to the Divine King Bei Ning. Now that the Divine King Bei Ning was dead, the oath was automatically lifted. Moreover, they had betrayed the Dark Moon Dominion and weren't part of the Dark Moon Dominion. Their only choice was to join the Immortal Dominion. It's your fortune to choose to join the Immortal Dominion. Night Sorrow looked at the former subordinates of the Divine King Bei Ning and said, "Originally, the Immortal Dominion didn't want to accept people so casually. But now, it seems that managing such a large dominion requires a lot of manpower. But there is one thing I must say first. I, Night Sorrow, have proven my Tao through virtue. If you join the Immortal Dominion, you must change some of your bad habits." Yes, Night Sorrow Dominion. The people who had pledged allegiance to Divine Monarch Northern Condensation immediately bowed towards Yi Shang. To them, it didn't matter who they followed. As for the steward's subordinates, they were the Dark Moon Dominion's subordinates. When they saw that the Divine King Bei Ning's subordinates had submitted, they immediately lost their minds. Yi Shang, who was looking at them, said, "You can leave. But before you leave, you must swear that you will never do anything to harm the Immortal Dominion." Yes, Night Sorrow Dominion. They were obviously hesitant when they were spared by Night Sorrow. They didn't expect Night Sorrow to speak before they had made a choice. However, since they had been spared and Night Sorrow was a merit divine lord, they naturally knew that he would not go back on his word. They immediately rushed towards the Dark Moon Dominator's territory. Night Sorrow led the remaining people to the Divine King's residence in North Ning to take over everything there. After taking over the Divine King's residence, Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said to Jin Nye, Brother Jinye, the immortal realm lacks a divine king like you. Why don't you stay here? Am I not supposed to stay here and fight alongside Brother Night Sorrow? Jinye asked doubtfully when he heard Night Sorrow's words. Once the matter at hand is settled, I will bring my wife and Auntie Faye to the Phoenix ancestral grounds to search for opportunities for them. Night Sorrow explained. If you come with us, no one in the immortal domain will be able to suppress you. He didn't want Jinye to fend off the invasion of other powers, but to stabilize the immortal domain. After he finished speaking, Jinye nodded and said, "That's good. Then I will look after the immortal realm for Brother Night Sorrow. Don't worry, the immortal domain will not fall into chaos before you return." "Thank you, Brother Jinye." Night Sorrow cupped his fists and thanked him. "We have gone through fire and water together. No need to be so polite. It just so happens that I, your elder brother, am preparing to calm down and cultivate properly. After leaving the ancient Golden Crow realm, I have been at a disadvantage in every battle. This has made me very angry." Jinye sighed and then asked in confusion, "Oh right. Brother Night Sorrow, why were you in a daze during the battle just now?" "Oh, that matter. At that time, I activated Tianyan Bao and comprehended an ultimate technique within it. It is called the Heavenly Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow." Night Sorrow explained his state at the time. He had been completely immersed in comprehending the technique, and Tianyan Bao's energy had successfully protected him from harm. After he woke up, it had helped to suppress the divine talisman thrown by the butler. So that's how it is. Brother Night Sorrow is indeed not an ordinary person. Jinye praised with a smile and said, "Brother Night Sorrow, aren't you worried about the materials to activate the Heaven and Earth Great Formation? Why don't we take a look at Bei Ning and the butler's spatial artifacts, as well as the Divine King's treasury?" "Okay. I was thinking the same thing." Yishang nodded. Together with Jinye and the others, they went to the treasury of Northern Condensation's Divine King Manor to search for useful materials. The others could take any ordinary materials and resources, but Night Sorrow only took those that were useful for activating the Heaven and Earth Great Formation. After searching through the spatial artifacts of Bei Ning and the Steward, as well as the treasury of Bei Ning's Divine King Palace, there were only 3 materials left for Night Sorrow. One was called Heaven's Eye Stone, one was called Sycamore Grass, and the last was Void Beast Bone. "Brother Jinye, please keep an eye out for these 3 materials. After this, I should go back to the Domain Chief's mansion to discuss the next step. As for the other areas, you can patrol for me." Night Sorrow felt that no one in the immortal divine realm could pose a threat to Jinye now that Bei Ning and the Divine King had been killed. Therefore he trusted Jinye. Xianjizi was asked to stay by Jinye's side to assist him. Sometimes Jinye was not very smart, while Xianjizi was a little weak, but he was smart enough. With the two of them working together, Night Sorrow could rest assured. After bidding farewell to them, Night Sorrow returned to the Domain Chief's mansion with Mo Yuqian and the others. On the way, he promised to go to the 9th Heaven Mystery Land after he returned from the Phoenix Ancestral Land, to find the formula for the Heavenly Phoenix ever-changing elixir for them, and try to save them as soon as possible. At the same time, he gave Mo Yuqian and the other Divine Emperors, who had been refined into puppets, the improved secret skill of the 33 Heaven Star Souls, hoping that they could strengthen their divine souls by themselves. When they arrived at the Domain Chief's mansion, Night Sorrow immediately went to look for Jingyun and Wu Lingfei. When he saw the two of them, Night Sorrow said, "Auntie Fei Jingyun, you should get ready. We will go to the Phoenix Ancestral Land immediately to find the opportunity that belongs to you." Night Sorrow, "I'm afraid it's not a good time to go now." Wu Lingfei looked troubled when she heard Night Sorrow's words. Auntie Fei, what's wrong with you? You still haven't recovered from that incident?" Yishang immediately asked worriedly. "Not really. It's just that I have a feeling that I'm going to become a Divine Emperor," Wu Lingfei explained. "That's good news. Auntie Fei, what resources do you need?" Night Sorrow asked happily. Wu Lingfei shook her head and said, "I don't need any resources. I just need the space of the Clear Sky Pagoda." "Good. We'll wait for you to become a Divine Emperor before we go together. It's not a big deal. Night Sorrow nodded and summoned Wu Lingfei into the clear sky pagoda. He said, Auntie Fei, how long do you think it will take for you to become a divine emperor? If it's too long, I'll go to the 9th heaven mystery land to find the formula for the heavenly phoenix ever-changing elixir for brother Mo Yuqian and the others. I'm not sure. It could be an instant, or it could be tens of thousands of years. Wu Lingfei replied with uncertainty. Chapter 2744. All right. I'll start my seclusion now. I won't come out until I break through. As Wu Lingfei spoke, she prepared to enter seclusion. She wouldn't come out until she became a divine lord. Night Sorrow took out some cultivation resources and handed them to her. Aunt Fei, I've moved the King Divine Pulse in the Clear Sky Pagoda to the Domain Master's Mansion. You can use these resources. Hehe, all right. I won't stand on ceremony with you. Wu Lingfei took the resources from Night Sorrow and walked into a stone room to begin her seclusion. Aunt Fei is my family. You don't have to stand on ceremony. Night Sorrow replied and left the Clear Sky Pagoda to return to the Domain Master's Mansion. Sikong Chiu saw Night Sorrow and immediately asked, Husband, how is Aunt Fei? When will she break through to the Divine Lord level? Aunt Fei needs an epiphany. It's not easy to tell the time. Night Sorrow answered honestly. Husband, what are you going to do next? Rest quietly for a while. Sikong Chiu continued. It's impossible for me to rest. I'm going to gather the materials to set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. We only lack 3 materials. One is called the Heaven's Eye Stone, the other is called the Parasol Tree Grass, and the last is the Void Beast Bone. Once we gather these materials and activate the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array, even Dominator T and I won't be able to find the habitat of the Night Moon Empire. Night Sorrow replied. The safety of his people was the most important thing to him. After all, after he broke through to the Divine King level, he might be able to cultivate an avatar and go to the Eternal Supreme Domain. Husband, how are we going to find them? Is there anything we can do to help? Lin Piumiao asked. When she was in the celestial realm, her presence was very strong. However, when she was in the divine world, she was limited by her strength and had no chance to help. She was very anxious. If Aunt Fei breaks through to the Divine Lord level, we will go to the Phoenix Ancestral Land together. Therefore, we can't be too far away. I'm going to make an announcement in the Immortal Dominion to exchange for clues about these 3 items. Night Sorrow said. The chances of finding a needle in a haystack with the help of the Night Moon Empire was very slim. He was going to mobilize all the cultivators in the Immortal Dominion to search. This method. When Lin Piumiao heard this, she sighed and said, I keep feeling that after reaching the Divine Realm, we seem to have become cripples. I'm a little reluctant. I feel the same way, Datura said. When he heard this, Yi Shang smiled and said, We just arrived at the Divine Dimension not long ago, and we haven't accumulated sufficient strength yet. As time passes, everyone will have plenty of opportunities. But husband, you've grown so strong. Every time you fight, you have to face God Kings or even sovereigns. We can't help and are very anxious in our hearts, Lin Piumiao said unwillingly. In the end, it's because my husband's strength has increased too quickly. We can't keep up with his pace, so we're feeling anxious. Yang Lei replied. She was already used to not being able to keep up with Night Sorrow's cultivation. She didn't feel the same way as Lin Piumiao and Datura. Night Sorrow felt that it made sense. He thought for a while and said, Actually, every part of a family is important. The reason why my strength has increased so quickly is inseparable from the support you guys have given me. It's because of you that Night Sorrow is here today. If you say so, we have nothing to refute. Hehe. Always smiled and poured a cup of hot tea for Night Sorrow. Let's not talk about the battles anymore. Little 13 has been fighting almost every day. Now that he's back at home, let's let him relax. Relax? Sure. Yang Lei smiled. Aoi said. The others laughed as well. Jingyan asked curiously, Sisters, what are you laughing about? How can we help our husband relax? How? Of course, We'll help him loosen his bones and massage his legs. While we're at it, we'll play some interesting games, Yang Lei said. Although Jing Yun was the oldest among them, she had experienced the least amount of battles. After marrying Knight Sorrow, she didn't get intimate with him much. She didn't understand the girl's secret code. Yi Shang chuckled when he heard what they said. Recently he had indeed been fighting all the time. He just wanted to relax. To him, family was the best shelter. Returning to his family made him feel relaxed. You guys are really... After Jing Yun heard Yang Lei's words, she immediately replied shyly. Yang Lei smiled. Jing Yun, we all have children. You're the only one who doesn't. You have to work hard tonight. Jing Yun didn't know how to refute. She just shut up. However, even if she shut up now, the girls still didn't let her off at night. They kept forcing her and Knight Sorrow to do the most primitive exercises. In the end, even Knight Sorrow felt embarrassed. He pulled the girls over and educated them one by one. He gave them a very vivid experience. After it ended, Knight Sorrow had a good night's sleep. When he woke up, he felt that his body and mind had completely recovered from the days of fighting. When he woke up, Knight Sorrow found his wives lying lazily on the bed. He got up and went outside to repair Tianyun Bao and the Sky Cloud Arrow. He had been through too many battles and Tianyun Bao had been activated once. This had caused him to wear and tear. Knight Sorrow used up all the sovereign stones on him to completely repair Tianyun Bao and the 9 Sky Cloud Arrows. After everything was repaired, Knight Sorrow found Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia and Geng Chun. He told them about the matter of finding the 3 materials and asked them to give instructions to their subordinates. The 3 of them had recently reached the peak of the High God Realm and could break through to the Monarch God Realm at any time. They had encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation and had nothing to do, so they immediately went to handle this matter. Knight Sorrow entered the Clear Sky Pagoda and cultivated in peace. To him, cultivating step by step wasn't very helpful in increasing his strength, but it was very good for calming his mind. After cultivating in the Clear Sky Pagoda for 100 years, Knight Sorrow once again consolidated his High God Realm. After completely forging his foundation into a perfect state, Knight Sorrow began to ponder a new spear art. In recent battles, the Forbidden Reincarnation spear's effects weren't very good. He prepared to research a more powerful spear art. After a long period of pondering and research, as well as Lin Piaomiao and Jing Yun's guidance, combined with Tianyun Bao's state, Knight Sorrow finally comprehended a new spear art. Heavenly Cloud Reincarnation Spear. The name was very simple, and the spear art wasn't very flashy. However, when the Heavenly Reincarnation Spear was used, it would borrow some of Tianyun Bao's sovereign realm strength. Its power was very terrifying. It was clearly more powerful than an ordinary Divine King's attack. However, the prerequisite was that Tianyun Bao was present. Chapter 2745. Is there good news? When Ho Lai and the other 2 arrived, their faces were filled with joy. Knight Sorrow immediately deduced. Haha, you guessed right. We received news that a void beast has appeared in the silent ocean of our immortal dominion. Don't we need its bones? We can go hunt it. Geng Chun said with a smile. The 3 of them did not expect the news to come so easily. They did not even have to ask and they already received useful information. Hearing this, Yi Shang nodded with a smile and said, It really is good news. Let's move out immediately. No rush. We have already asked. The Silent Ocean is a very special place. Everyone needs to make some preparations. Zhu Yunxia immediately explained. You can't fly in the Silent Ocean. You can only rely on ships to travel there. So we need to prepare a few extremely sturdy ships. What kind of ships do we need? Knight Sorrow asked. We need at least a king grade one. Otherwise, it won't be able to withstand the baptism of the waves. Zhu Yunxia told Knight Sorrow about the situation. A king grade ship is really not easy to build. A king grade ship made Knight Sorrow feel a little awkward. After thinking for a while, he said, We definitely don't have any ready-made ones. We can only build them ourselves. I should be able to build one, but I need to go to Brother Jinye's residence to find some materials. Wait for me here. Since this is the news that everyone found out, let's go together. Ha! The three of us also have the same idea. Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia, and Gengchen said in unison. All right. Wait for me here. I'll be back soon. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he went to the Divine King Jinye's residence. When he met him, he mentioned the king-grade materials. All right. Let's go to the treasury together. Jinye was very happy that Night Sorrow had come. He brought him directly to the treasury. After finding the relevant materials, Night Sorrow immediately raised the grade of the 8-dragon cauldron to king grade. Then he used it to build a king grade battleship. Once the 3 king grade warships were completed, a terrifying lightning tribulation was immediately summoned. However, to the current Night Sorrow, the thunder tribulation of a king grade divine artifact was no threat at all. He took the 3 battleships and passed through the thunder tribulation together. Creating 3 identical warships was a precautionary measure. When he returned to the domain chief's manor, Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia, and Gengchen were all waiting for him. Standing with them was Yin Tianyi. At this time, although Yin Tianyi was a lower divine lord, his aura was extremely powerful. The bloodline in his body had been more or less opened. In a few days, he would catch up to or even surpass his ancestor. Wait for me for a while. I'll say goodbye to my family, and then we'll set off. Night Sorrow knew that the 4 of them were filled with fighting spirit, so he didn't say anything. After returning to the house and saying goodbye to his wives, he went to the Horn people and brought Cao Linger over. Cao Linger's 2 horns were outstanding existences in the entire Horn people. It was extremely helpful for treasure hunting and the like. After gathering, Night Sorrow temporarily put Cao Linger away in the vast heaven pagoda. He brought the other 4 people and flew towards the Soundless Sea according to the location marked on the map. Rushing to the edge of the Soundless Sea, Night Sorrow brought everyone to a nearby city and came to a restaurant. Sitting in a private room on the 2nd floor, he handed over 20 divine crystals to the waiter and opened his mouth to ask, "Little brother, do you know about the void beast in the Soundless Sea? The matter blew up so big I definitely know about it. But it's impossible to know about it. After all, with this lowly one's strength, I don't have the ability to investigate to the bottom." The waiter nodded and bowed. "Tell me what you know." Ho Lai, who drank a mouthful of tea, opened his mouth and said. His voice was relatively loud, scaring the waiter until he trembled. Following that, he said, "I heard that the void beast is in the depths of the Soundless Sea. It specializes in hunting high deity realm and divine lord realm cultivators for food. I heard that it has already eaten 5 to 6 divine lords and several hundred high deities." Eating so many people. There are still people going? Zhu Yunxia heard that so many people had already died and asked somewhat uncomfortably. People die in love. Birds die in pursuit of food. Don't all of you have the same thoughts? Otherwise, what's the point of asking about this, right? The waiter nodded and bowed as he said. Seeing that Ho Lai had the intention to get angry, he immediately opened his mouth and said, "It's not that this lowly one is speaking inauspiciously. This lowly one is saying this because I received money from several lords. Otherwise, I wouldn't speak out to warn." "No matter. You continue." At this time, Gengchen pressed Ho Lai and said. Hearing this, the waiter nodded his head and continued. "If dear guests truly wish to go and investigate to the bottom of things, go to Daoist Temple. This lowly one suggests that you all go to Chrysanthemum Dao Right and meet Daoist No Hair. I heard that he entered the Soundless Sea and retreated unscathed." Chrysanthemum Dao Right, Daoist No Hair? What kind of name is that? Zhu Yunxia felt a chill run down her spine. Daoist No Hair, also known as the Hairless Divine Lord, is ranked 79th on the Divine Lord list. Chrysanthemum Dao Right is his territory. The waiter explained and continued. "However, I heard that his temper has been a little strange recently. If you all go and meet him, you must be careful." "All right. We understand. Go and prepare the food and wine." At this time, Night Sorrow opened his mouth to send the waiter away and said, "Do you all think that there's a need to meet Daoist No Hair? I feel that there's a need to meet him. If he really entered the Soundless Sea, He must have some understanding of the environment there. Zhu Yunxia said seriously. Yin Tianyi also said, I also feel that there's a need to meet him. After all, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. All right. Then let's meet him, Night Sorrow said decisively. After finishing their meal, they asked the waiter about the Chrysanthemum Dao Right's location, and rushed over. After arriving at the Chrysanthemum Dao Right, Night Sorrow and the rest found that it was simply a sea of people. At the entrance of the Dao Right, there were Feather God Realm cultivators selling tickets, saying that Daoist No Hair was going to open an on-site training for the cultivators heading to the Soundless Sea. I'll buy the tickets and see what he has to say, Yin Tianyi said and went to line up, spending 500 divine crystals to buy 5 tickets. The group entered the Chrysanthemum Dao Right and waited for about 2 hours. The Daoist No Hair, ranked 79th on the Divine Lord list, wore a yellow Daoist robe and appeared in front of everyone. Cough cough. Even if you don't say it, this poor Daoist knows why you're here. It's for that evil creature in the Soundless Sea. After the Daoist No Hair appeared, he immediately brought up the main topic. That void beast. It's extremely terrifying and has the ability to cut through the void. If you use your movement technique in front of it, it's very likely that you'll be cut into pieces when you pass through the void. At that time, this Divine Lord faced such a huge monster with the determination to die. Determination to die, and then. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.